Kapanen. Blues get it ahead to Kapanen. 3-on-1, they move it in, they shoot, score! Kevin Hayes points up to the heavens after he scores the goal. It's a 3-0 St. Louis Blues lead. A second point of the game for Kapanen. That'll do it. Bring out the Zamboni. A great road win for the Blues to close out the road trip. A 5-1 victory over the Boston Bruins. And they're coming home with a massive head-to-head game against the LA Kings.
A massive head-to-head game coming up later this week against the Kings for your Blues because of a win last night. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex, I joke, it is kind of big. You look at the standings right now, you can convince yourself if you want to that the Blues are still technically in this thing, man. They are 6 points back of the Vegas Golden Knights for the final wild card spot right now. The Blues have 69 points on the season. Very nice. The Vegas Golden Knights are up to 75 right now. Alex, that being said, as I'm watching last night and I see the Blues, they played well. They genuinely played a good game. Boston, I also thought, was terrible. They didn't show up for that one at all. All I could think to myself, and I don't blame anybody in our listening audience right now if you do not feel this way, but I think there's different ways to watch the team when you get to this point in the season. All I could think of was, man, they're going to screw up this draft pick again. They're going to screw it up again.
No, man, there's playoffs.
I know, like, you can convince yourself after a performance like that against that opponent, and especially with the upcoming schedule, we'll get into it, but it is not the hardest schedule by any stretch of the imagination that remains this year. You can get yourself to a place where you're like, they could still technically get in. But where I'm at, Alex, from my side of the aisle, it's they're not getting in. And instead of picking top 8, you're going to end up picking like 16th. Now, I don't know X prospect from Y prospect from Z prospects in this year's class, but I know that typically the 8th overall pick's got a lot more value than the 16th overall pick.
It's true.
So,
unless you get the 8th overall pick at the 16th
right now,
overall
man.
pick.
As you watched the game last night, you were listening to the call right here in your home of the Blues 101 ESPN. Are you hoping that they have a performance like that? Are you just waiting for them to maybe find a way to get a better draft position? Where are you at with watching these games right now?
I mean, sitting on the fence like we typically do with BK and Ferrario. Look, I do believe what Ken Hitchcock used to say, what Doug Armstrong has said, what I've heard Larry Plow say in the past. As much as you want a really good draft pick, there's nothing more beneficial for your players than getting a taste of playoffs. And, I mean, that's two general managers that have said it and a Hall of Fame head coach that have said it, because that's the growth that comes with it. The one that Doug Armstrong has referenced was going back to when the Blues just made the playoffs out of nowhere in the middle of that rebuild when Andy Murray was the coach. What was that, 2008, 2009? He said that was massive for guys like David Backes and David Perron and TJ Oshie that kind of jump-started what they did in their sustained playoff run. So it's always beneficial to have, especially if you've got guys like Jake Neighbors, if you've got guys like Matt Kessel, players that are a part of your future. And if you want to see Jimmy Snuggerud, you want a taste of the playoffs because those guys get a taste of it, and then you go into next season wanting more. But I also, and I hate this about me, I'm a realist at times, and I understand who you're chasing. What?
With the Cardinals, you are.
I'm a realist with the Blues this season. Come on, guys.
I feel like you've been better the last month or so.
I mean, I've nailed it on Jordan Bennington, Colton Parayko, Jake Neighbors, and Robert Thomas. So.
Remember when we thought Kasperi Kapanen was going to be a 20-goal scorer?
Wow, that was
Vrana.
Yeah.
That was a little sprinkle of fairy dust that we got put on us at the trade deadline. We're like, oh my God, these guys are good.
Remember when you thought Sammy Blais was going to do something this year? Like, it's a classic meme of the guy with the stick. Do something.
We said, maybe 15 goals this season, and, well, he has one right now.
Man, wouldn't it be really good if we were right on all those?
Yeah, we would be a playoff contender.
God, imagine this middle six.
But, look, you're chasing... To me, Nashville is out of reach for you. Like, I know you could catch them realistically, but they've won 8 out of their last 10. They're undefeated in regulation in their last 10.
Well, good. Vegas is only a super team.
They're on a heater right now.
The thing is, like, who are you catching?
Well, Vegas would be the one that you'd look at, but Vegas is going to have Tomas Hertl playing for them in 2 weeks. They've got the roster in place. They just got to get healthier.
Seen their blue line? They're all
good.
the Hulk.
Hey, the blue line's been playing for the last 2 games, and they lost both of them. So, like, it's L.A. and it's Vegas, but L.A. just picked up a win last night, so they're sitting, 8 points ahead of you.
I feel like L.A.'s the team. But I
you
know
only
technically right now Vegas is in that last spot. Vegas is 2 points back of L.A., but I think by the end of this thing, LA's the one that's going to be in that last wild card
Maybe.
spot.
They've got a game in hand on you, though, just like the Vegas Golden Knights do, and you only play them one more time. So I look at that and I say, cool. Realistically, it's going to be very, we're talking you're going to have to go on a run, and Matt DeFrank's had this about a week ago, to make the playoffs with like 92 points, 94 points, just to match what the outlook was for Nashville. The Blues would have had to do what they did in the first 21 games when Drew Bannister took over.
We're off to a good start.
Easy.
So we're talking about them going on like another 8 out of 10 win streak. And that's hoping that Nashville and LA and Vegas don't get hot. So that's where I fall on the other side of the fence. And as a fan, I look at it and I say, man, you're going to get the 13th overall pick. And as good as that's better to have the 13th overall pick than the 21st overall pick. But that's not expediting this retool. Now, maybe you trade the 13th overall pick in the offseason for an actual NHL player.
So right now, if you're curious, so what is the range for the Blues when it comes to their draft pick? The 8th overall selection right now is Buffalo. They have 65 points on the season. The 15th overall selection is Washington. They have 69 points on the season. So the gap between the 8th pick and the 15th pick is 4 points. And right now, the Blues are right in that mix. They have 69 points on the year. There are some games in hand that are being played with here, but by points percentage, the Blues would be picking, as of today, at 13th. They have 17 games remaining.
Well, let me tell you, this draft is not beyond the top 10. You go after 10, you're talking about not projects, but you're talking about waiting a good 2 to 3 years for them.
Somebody from the 314 said, I'm so sick of this, guys. And by the way, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. I feel like the Blues are the girl you constantly break up with, but always end up getting back together with her.
That's
I'm
on
not
you.
falling for it this
That's
time.
on you.
She cheated on me 6 different times. She told me she loved me. She went to...
And I'm so sick of love songs.
I don't need it anymore. I don't need that kind of drama in my
I
life.
didn't know that.
Dude, you missed out on so many
Neo,
great...
I know.
man, Neo touched my heart. You know,
You old guys.
He touched my heart back in the early 2000s.
So many great R&B love songs.
I cried
They
a
just
lot.
Don't make them the same
I cried
anymore.
a lot in high school. You know,
I believe that.
cried a lot. Girls broke my heart a
The
lot.
Blues are doing that to a lot of people right now.
And you know
but
what?
not
I cry
to
about
me.
them sometimes too.
I made the mistake one time. I had a really lonely moment.
Yeah.
The Blues
We
told
all
me that
remember, right?
He-
Choo-choo!
Yeah. He woke up the next morning. Oh, no.
the Blues
What
told
did I
me
do?
that they loved me, and I was like, you know what?
He rolled over. He goes, ugh.
I love you too, baby. And
They were a
I
7
woke up
under
the
the
next
light.
morning and said, I've made a terrible mistake.
Oh, those Bud Lights hit
I
fast.
can't take this back, but I regret it. And ever since then, I've lived to regret that moment where I said the choo-choo all aboard the Blues train, and I don't feel good about it. So
I never regret my decisions.
I'm not back. I'm not back on that bandwagon. I'm not doing it. But if you are, I understand it because the schedule is there, dude. Like they could do this.
Yeah, just here's the thing. And
Requires a whole lot of hope.
Curbs
and belief.
always talks about this. The common denominator for playoff teams, and it has been this for a very long time, is goal differentials. If you're in the plus, if you're in the green, you got a playoff
Where are
team.
the Blues at?
They're red, and they're man. You stepped all over my rhyme that I had there.
Sorry.
If you're in the green, you're a playoff team. Damn it!
Sorry, man.
They're in the red, which means they're dead. It's minus 16.
Oh.
I mean, and so, but these are the teams ahead of them. Plus 10 for Nashville, plus 16 for Vegas, plus 26 for LA. The only exception right now is the Philadelphia Flyers in the Metro Division, and they're a minus 2.
And they sold at the deadline.
And they sold at the deadline. So
Nobody from the East wants
Yeah.
to compete.
A
They're all
bad-
like, no.
a bad team in the East is going to make the playoffs. But in the Western Conference, and look, I think the West is tougher than the East, you're going to have to be a positive goal differential. If we're going to ride the hope train, you've got to fix that minus 16 and turn it into a plus 2.
Good luck. You've got 17 games left. You've got to win all of them, essentially.
Yeah.
Or win a lot like you did last night.
Exactly.
Alex, here's the upcoming schedule. I'm going to leave off a couple of games.
All right, let's
but
play.
LA.
Win.
Winnable. At least winnable.
They beat them
right?
earlier, so I'll say winnable.
Loss.
Minnesota.
Win. I think they're the better team.
Win.
That one feels like a loss.
Ottawa. These teams are bad that I'm saying here. Minnesota,
It's win.
Calgary, San Jose, Anaheim, Chicago, Seattle. Like, if you have hope, that's why. Your schedule stinks.
And if you have
the
hope for
rest
a
of the
high
way.
pick, that's why. Lose a bunch of those, you can slide right past
Oh, for
them.
sure. Definitely. Like, there are different ways to operate here. Some people are going to look at this through the optimism lens, and I get that. If you want a
wanna live
chance
longer.
to see your team in the playoffs, it's always fun. And you've got Binner, which means, hey, who knows, right? I view this through the, man, get that pick.
Well,
see what happens there kind of a route. And if you do that, who knows what Doug Armstrong decides to do with it? Who knows what that pick could mean
And it's
for you?
not us being jerks and not being fans. The team did this to us. Because it's hard, if you're BK and T-Bone right now, it's hard to look at it and say, well, they can make the playoffs because we've seen this. We saw them beat the Edmonton Oilers and then lose 2 in a row. We saw them shut out the New York Islanders and then lose 3 in a row. So until they start stringing games together and the players play the way that they played last night, maybe not the third period, but the first 2 periods, that's when you can start to, that's when BK's the toot jumping on the belief train. But the players did this. And until you put some consistency together in your games, then people are going to be in this little middle where it's like, well, you're inconsistent. Why not go get a really good draft pick, especially when, and I looked at this last night, if the playoffs started today, every team except one that is a playoff team has made a selection in the top 5. Every team.
Who's the exception?
The exception was the New York Islanders, and they're tied with Detroit right now. So if Detroit gets in and the Islanders don't.
They're not a contender.
But, I mean, Tampa's had it. Philly, Carolina, the Rangers, Toronto, Boston, Florida, Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado, Vancouver, Edmonton, L.A., Nashville, Vegas. They've all had it. And so that's where the other side of this train is, damn, as much as I want to see this team be a playoff team, at some point you got to get a really good draft pick.
Yeah, well, I think this team's not bad enough. That's like you have Jordan Bennington, which means you're not picking top 5.
Yeah.
That's the truth. And so if you need to be picking in the top 5, it requires most likely a trade of Jordan Bennington, and none of us want that. All right, final thing here on the Blues from yesterday. We got the notification like mid-afternoon, early evening that Zach Dean had been recalled. The player that the Blues traded for last year at the deadline when they made the move with Barbashev to Vegas. Zach Dean, instead of getting a pick, they got a prospect, former first-round pick. He's been playing better lately, Alex. He's a center by trade, played a little bit on the wing earlier in the season after some struggles in the center and then struggles with injuries as well. He's back to center now, and it sounds like that is where the Blues plan to play him moving forward. This lineup is a bit clogged right now. You're not taking Shin, Thomas, Kyrou, Neighbors, Booch, Bolduc, Saad, Hayes out of the lineup. I think your 4th line is set, so the guy that you would likely take out of the lineup is Kasperi Kapanen, but you're going to take him out of the lineup after he scored a goal for the first time in the 2024 calendar year?
The year of our Lord 2024.
I guess that's the move. How do you think they make this work? The other thing is, like, is he going to be a top 6 center for you immediately?
No, I think you're looking at 4th line center.
So what are you doing with Sonny?
Sonny's probably a winger for you. And you get that rotation where it would be Sonny takes a face-off in the defensive zone, Dean gets the face-off in the offensive zone, get your feet wet. Toropchenko moves up into your top 9.
Feels like that's a lot of planning when you have Bolduc doing the same thing right now. Like, at some point, you got to let these guys sink or swim.
Welcome to a retool.
I'm with you, but like, go full retool. If that's the plan, I'm fine with it. But if you're bringing him up, man, let's see what he can do.
And they can and they will just, I would expect to put Sonny on the wing and let Zach Dean just take the center position. The hard part is center position requires a lot of responsibilities in the NHL compared to the AHL. So there might be like, hey, start him on the wing and then you kind of get your feet wet and get the center position. But yeah, you start him on the 4th line. I would imagine Nathan Walker maybe comes out of the lineup after this last game because of Kapanen, or maybe Dean doesn't get in right away, because if Kapanen would have played poorly, we would have said he goes in for Kapanen. But Kapanen had a good game. You're not going to break up Hayes, Saad, and Kapanen. So my guess would be a Toropchenko, Zach Dean, and Oscar Sundqvist. And then if somebody falls off the wagon as the season keeps going, Toropchenko moves up into your top 9 because he played well yesterday. But I looked at this last night. Does Dean in his last 10 games, and this is all since he's been pushed to the number 1 center spot for the Springfield Thunderbirds, 10 games, 5 goals, 7 points, 22 shots on goal, and was a -2. So he significantly made improvement from where he was with the injury and being on the third line, playing wing. He's earned more responsibility, and that was the reason for the call-up. My bigger question was, is this the Blues really believing like he's ready for this next step? Or are they looking at this as like, hey, this is a lost season, we need to get guys reps? That's the in-between area that I seem to be right now for the Blues, but I don't know when he plays, if he plays on Wednesday, for how good they played against Boston. But when he plays, I would imagine he's going to slot in on that fourth line with Oscar Sundqvist and Toropchenko.
I hope he's top nine forward for you. I hope they put him in a real situation to succeed. I would put Shin on one of his wings.
I mean, you could put Hayes on a wing with him, too.
I would put Shin out over on a wing with him. I want to see what it looks like with Zach Dean in the top 9 and find out. The next 17 games, man, this is your opportunity to it's like what we said at the end of the Cardinals season with Mason Wynn. Bring him up. Let's see what it looks like. And you'll find out, is he ready for this at the major league level or is he not? And if he's not, you now have that information. It's found money. You have that information for next season. You're finding out information right now about Dean, about Bolduc. We're going to eventually, hopefully, find out a little bit about Snuggerud. Let's see what the young guys look like. This is what the retool was all about, is to get these prospects and find out if they can help you long term. I want to find out if Zach Dean can be a long-term member of what you're trying to do in your top 9.
I think it is important to put it into perspective, though. Like, Zach Dean's outlook comp-wise is like a Tyler Bozak.
Cool.
You're never...
Third line center.
Agreed, but I'm just making sure people don't think this is a kid coming in like with the Jimmy Snuggerud or Dalibor Dvorsky trajectory. This is a kid that Daniel Tkachuk said yesterday, the head coach for the Thunderbirds, he plays like a prototypical St. Louis Blue. He's got fight in his game. He's hard to get the puck away. He's a feisty player. That's what Zach Dean is. I don't think there should be any more expectations put on him when he comes up. But you're right. Give this kid some length right now so he can see what it looks like as a centerman at the NHL, because you're going to be relying on him next season to be doing the same thing.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're diving into some NFL quick hitters with our recap of the first day in the NFL's free agency period. But coming up next, the Cardinals have to make a decision very soon on if they're going to add a free agent outfielder or not. The decision could be based on one of the guys that we're going to see at the top of the lineup today. We'll tell you about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Well, it officially happened for my parents. Their HVAC system went out a couple of days ago, but it's okay. They called Classic Air Care immediately. This is why we've been using them. My dad's been using them for like 30 years. I've been using them at my house for 6 years because Classic Air Care is there to make your life easy. So when the HVAC system went out, they had them come out. Technician Jim was over there that next day. He was walking through everything that it was going to go through, showed them the bare minimum of what they needed for the HVAC system, and they're getting it installed this Saturday. And look, when it comes to purchasing an HVAC system, you want to go with the company that you trust, not the car salesman style where they're trying to upgrade you on every little piece. You don't need that. You want someone who's honest with you about the HVAC system that they're putting in so you know what you're getting. And the financing that's available with Classic Air Care makes life so much easier. They got 18-month, 0% financing right now that's available for your HVAC system needs. And if you don't believe me, check out their hundreds of reviews up on Google Review, a 4.8 rating. Everybody talks about the customer service that Classic Air Care provides. Give them a call today, check them out, or check them out online, classicaircare.com.
So the Cardinals have to make a decision very soon on whether or not they are going to be signing a center fielder alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. This is not based on, them needing a center fielder necessarily, but the market. There's only one that remains if you're trying to find a true center fielder type, and that's Michael A. Taylor. T-Bone's brought up his name in the past. He's excellent defensively. He doesn't bring a ton offensively. A good isn't strong. A decent right-handed bat. He'll be basically league average for you. What you're expecting this year from Tommy Edman, that's kind of what you expect out of Michael A. Taylor with a little less out of his bat.
Man, Alex, you are selling this.
I mean, I'm not trying to tell you that he's a great player, but he can help you. The downside of Victor Scott is a slightly worse version of Michael A. Taylor, essentially. So I don't know if that's something that the Cardinals want to do or not. They're probably just going to run this thing back with Dylan Carlson and put Alec Burleson in left. But if they want to be better defensively this year and they're not willing to bring up Victor Scott right off the bat, this is probably the route they should go, is to put Michael A. Taylor in center field, have Dylan Carlson in left, see what that looks like. And if it doesn't go well, then whenever Nootbaar or Tommy Edman returns, I would assume Nootbaar will be first, you just DFA Michael A. Taylor and you say, okay, we're going to go ahead and go with the guys that we were planning to start anyways. Do you think this is something the Cardinals should consider, Alex? Because if they're going to, it's probably got to happen this week.
Hey, man, I'm doing this because I'm your friend. Well, you think I'm your friend. You're turning too much into John Mozeliak.
What do you mean?
Stop trying to add more damn outfilders to this team.
I mean, they don't have enough right now.
Well, apparently we spent all of last year talking about how we have too many outfielders because we guys need more playing time and you need to stop rotating through all these guys. And now you want to add a Michael A. Taylor to this roster?
I think
play Victor Scott, man.
I think all of this comes down to the decision on Victor Scott. If you're willing to bring Victor Scott with the club on opening day, there is zero need for Michael A. Taylor. If you're not, that's where the conversation gets interesting, in my opinion, because I don't think they want Alec Burleson as an everyday outfielder. And then the question becomes, okay, what about Brendan Donovan? Because he's fine out there. He's not great, but he's fine. He could do the job at least. Can he throw? That's something we don't know the answer to just yet, and you probably need to get some answers on that before you decide on Michael A. Taylor, and yet that's going to be later this week when Michael A. Taylor might already be signed by the Padres if you're going this route. So the reason that I'm bringing it up today is because I think the Cardinals would like to wait. They would like to see more evidence on what's going on with Victor Scott. What's up with Dylan Carlson? Can we do this with Brendan Donovan? Are we okay with Alec Burleson? But they don't have that benefit of time because this market is going to move because players want to know where they're playing. And Michael A. Taylor, according to all reports, has a market that is starting to develop, and it does include the Padres.
I just think if you're going to do this with Michael A. Taylor, I mean, you said it. If it doesn't work out, then when Tommy Edman is back in 2 to 3 weeks, let's go down that optimistic route, then you just DFA and move on. In the same scenario, why not play your prospect who is showing you the ability to play at the major league level for 2 to 3 weeks. And if it doesn't work, then you just put him back down and you move on.
I think based on playing time, we're starting to see that. I think the Cardinals are more open to that than maybe some of the people that are covering the Cardinals down in Jupiter right now are leading you to believe. I think their words, the Cardinals' words, are telling people, no. It's Dylan Carlson. It's Dylan Carlson. It's Dylan Carlson. Their actions are not showing that.
Yeah.
Because Dylan Carlson yesterday was the only regular in the lineup that got 4 at-bats in the game. You don't do that for no reason. You do that because you want to see the highest number of at-bats possible for Carlson in that game. Today, Victor Scott, it's not newsworthy that he is in the lineup. They're taking all of their young players to the game today against the Boston Red Sox. It is absolutely noteworthy that he's leading off because you do that to find out the most information possible when he's in the game. I bet you he gets 3 at-bats today, as he should, because you need to get as much information on him as possible. Frankly, I would play him the entire game. For the rest of spring, I would find out what is Dylan Carlson right now, what is Victor Scott right now. For most people, and T-Bone, you know this as well as anybody, I don't care what you do in spring. It matters for those two guys, what they're doing right now. It matters a lot. So I'm with you, Alex. For my money, if Victor Scott shows me the rest of spring that he's ready and that, hey, defense, he's good. Offense, probably leave a little bit to be desired, but he's at least capable. He's not going to make a fool out of himself at the plate. Cool. take him with you. He should be your opening day center fielder, Dylan Carlson in left, and then Burleson fits in wherever. He can be a left fielder one day, first base, and then the next, and a DH the next day. That should be his role on this team, but it all comes down to me to what they're willing to do with Victor Scott.
Yeah. And I think that's why they're not going to get in on this on the Taylor market. I don't
need Tyrod Taylor.
It's football season.
Tyrod signed yesterday. We'll get to that here in a little bit.
Huge signing, by the way. Kind of, but no. Michael A. Taylor, excuse me. I don't see them getting involved in his market, and I think it's twofold. I think one, it's that they think Nootbaar's probably going to be ready for opening day, and if he's not, it's going to be like a week. So for a week, can you patch together Alec Burleson in left field? I saw him out there a lot more last year. So yeah, you can do it for a week with Alec Burleson in left, or Brendan Donovan, however you want to do it in left field. And then I think it comes down to center field. And I think if it was, man, Victor Scott's not playing very well, and it is Dylan Carlson's job, who, let's be honest, hasn't played very well in spring either, I think they would probably be approaching this Michael A. Taylor market now, because I truly believe Tommy Edman's out at least a month, maybe more. We'll see how this recovery is going to go with the wrist now that he's had 2 setbacks already. But because Scott is playing well and they're continuing to build up his playing time, and it is very telling that him and Dylan Carlson are getting a ton of at-bats in spring training, I think they're open to the idea of Scott being on the roster. And if they're open to that, there's no need for them to explore the Michael A. Taylor market, because then they can basically say, you know what, it is Victor Scott's job to have for right now. And if it doesn't work out, well, we'll figure it out from there.
Now, if you want to go down that path, can I give you another name that I would look at?
Free agency-wise?
Yeah.
Is it Adam Duvall?
Adam Duvall.
I don't know that I want him playing in center.
I mean, he played it last year.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, this is a temporary thing, but if anything, you can keep the bat on this roster. And I know it's a 35-year-old, but hey, let's just
that would fit the theme
par
of the
for the course with this team. But I mean, at least, the dude hit 21 home runs for them last year. Like, the bat still plays. If I'm going to sign somebody, I would much rather sign an Adam Duvall, who I know the bat will play, than worry about just getting a Michael A. Taylor. Because if I'm doing Michael A. Taylor, I would just do Victor Scott.
See, I guess we view it a little differently. It's interesting there. I am prioritizing defense this year. And so I am leaning towards what gets me the best defensive outfield available, and that would be Michael A. Taylor. Michael A. Taylor allows you to put Dylan Carlson in left, and now I feel pretty good about all of that. Now, if you want to put Duvall in left, for example, like you want Carlson in center, Duvall in left, at that point, I feel like you just go with what you have. T-Bone's probably right. A lot of this also comes down to what's the timeline that they're expecting out of Lars Nootbaar. I just know with 2 fractured ribs, they can tell us all they want how quickly Lars Nootbaar is going to be able to get back into the lineup. Dude, that is not an easy thing to come back from when you're playing in left field the way that he does. He is going to try to dive after balls. He's a good left fielder. You want him to do those different things, and his value is in part extracted because of his defense. I don't want him being timid out there. So if it's going to take an extra week or 2 for me to truly feel like he's healthy, so be it. I don't know. They're in a really tough spot right now. I think it all comes down to I want Victor Scott on the opening day roster.
I think we're all on the same page there.
That solves a lot of their problems that we're discussing right now. All right. The last thing here, free agency-wise, guys, we're 16 days away from opening day.
Sooner for the Dodgers and Padres, by the way.
Yeah, that's true.
Are Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell going to sign?
Well, Montgomery would if the Cardinals would just answer their damn phone. Apparently he's calling.
No money.
Even if they signed today,
I don't know if they'd be ready.
I don't think they would be ready by opening day.
Aren't they like doing side sessions throughout free agency?
Sure. And as we saw with Greg Holland, that doesn't necessarily mean you're ready.
That was a Mike Matheny problem. Yeah. That was a Mike Matheny problem.
I don't know what's going to happen here, but I can't really remember a good comparison for being this late as a pitcher. As a hitter, you can kind of get yourself ready timing-wise. You'd be off a little bit early on in the season. Like Harper, Machado, they both signed pretty late into spring. As a pitcher, and as a pitcher of this level, it's incredibly rare to be available this late into spring training. I'm genuinely wondering if they're just going to wait into the season at this point.
I don't know. I wouldn't do that if I'm either one of them, just because we've seen how pitchers can struggle if they don't get, because pitchers, they talk about it all the time, how they are creatures of habit, and like going to a 6-man rotation will throw guys off even doing that. Not having a spring training to where you're actually getting prepared for the season, and to all of a sudden say like, hey, that draft pick, what is it called? Why am I drawing a blank? Oh,
the
man,
comp
my brain. The comp pick drops off at the draft. Guys, that's the All-Star break. So you're saying like Blake Snell's just going to suddenly come out of the All-Star break with like a Superman cape on to come save somebody? That is risky. I am shocked by the way that this free agent market has played out. And it's not just with Snell and Montgomery. I mean, hell, Duvall hit 21 home runs last year for the Red Sox. JD Martinez is still a legitimately great bat as a designated hitter. Michael A. Taylor, though his bat is not left to be desired, he's great defensively. He was a +5 defensive run saves in center field last year. Tommy Pham helped the freaking Diamondbacks get to the World Series, and he's still a free agent. Like, this market has been unbelievable. It's embarrassing for Major League Baseball, honestly.
It is, and this is just where we are. Like, this is where we are with the sport. For whatever reason, these teams are not budging on what they're willing to spend. If you want to go out there and make your team better, there's a pretty good way to make yourself from a fringe contender into a real contender in either league right now by just going out and spending some money, but teams don't want to do it. Coming up in 15 minutes, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. But next, NFL quick hitters, including which running back that has signed or been traded in the case of Joe Mixon over the last 24 hours is going to have the most success for his new team. We'll tell you next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley for our friends over at Circa Sports in Illinois. Guys, this is the way that sports betting was supposed to be. The largest sports book in Vegas is now giving you the opportunity to bet from your fingertips with the Circa Sports app in the state of Illinois. Alex, it is officially the month of March, which means if you haven't been already, you should be betting on college basketball with the Circa Sports app. They're going to have those tight money line splits that you're looking for. They're never going to limit you on the Circa Sports app, so if you've been over with somebody else, go ahead and give Circa Sports a try.
You're not going to find anything better when it comes to the betting experience on the Circa Sports app. They want people to download other sports betting apps, explore them, compare the lines, those tight money line splits that BK was talking about, and they believe that you're going to see that Circa has the best odds available to you for all of your sports bettings, whether it's the single ones or you're going those big parlays. They'll know you'll come back. It's what BK and I do using the Circa Sportsbook Illinois app for all of our betting needs. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The St. Louis Blues beat the Bruins last night 5-1. They'll be back in action tomorrow night as they host the LA Kings. Well, pregame coverage starting at 5:30 with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for puck drop at 6:30. Cardinals back in spring training action today as they're taking on the Boston Red Sox. Matthew Liberatore will get the start for St. Louis. And breaking news out of the NFL, Derrick Henry is signing a 2-year, $16 million deal with the Baltimore Ravens. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffautoPlex.com. Are you kidding me?
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. You just heard the news from T-Bone that Derrick Henry, this always made the most sense, is going to be signing with the Baltimore Ravens. It's effectively a one-year deal. So Henry to the Ravens. Josh Jacobs is now with the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay decided to cut Aaron Jones. He is going to replace him there. Aaron Jones is going to be headed to Minnesota on a one-year deal worth $7 million. There's a lot of movement here, so try to keep up, ladies and gentlemen. Saquon Barkley headed to Philly. Tony Pollard now with Tennessee, where he's replacing the aforementioned Derrick Henry. DeAndre Swift going from Philly to Chicago. Devin Singletary is going to be with the Giants, where he will replace Saquon Barkley. Antonio Gibson's headed to New England. Austin Eckler is now a Washington Commander.
Jeez.
Zach Moss is headed to Cincinnati, where Cincinnati decided to trade, of course, Joe Mixon to the Texans.
I thought running backs don't matter.
And finally, Gus Edwards is headed to play with his old offensive coordinator and Greg Roman. He will be playing for the Chargers, where he is replacing, of course, the aforementioned Austin Eckler. In other words, all of these guys just switched teams.
Yeah.
Everybody that had a free agent running back was like, what if I got the other guy? So
It's basically like the Cardinals offseason. They sign friends of other people, and that's how
Exactly.
their offseasons are decided.
Alex, I mentioned a bunch of names. They're all kind of in the same spot, somewhere between like $6 and $10 million on a per year basis on a 1 to 3 year deal. Who do you think is going to have the most success with their new team?
Baltimore. Easy, Baltimore.
Interesting.
I think Derrick Henry is the type of person that you need in Baltimore. So, one, you don't have to use Lamar Jackson as much as the mobile quarterback, although he still will be, but you've got the guy to hand the ball off to now. If he stays healthy, which seems to always be the caveat you put with the Baltimore Ravens, but Derrick Henry seems to always find ways to stay healthy. I love that signing. You're right. It made the most sense. And for Derrick Henry, I think that is one of the missing pieces for them to take that next step.
I do like that signing, but can I be honest? The one that I love the most from yesterday, and I don't even know if you said this one. I got lost during the whole running back shuffle.
You talked so fast.
I like the Zach Moss signing by the Cincinnati Bengals. I thought Moss was great for the Indianapolis Colts last year. Really kept them afloat while Jonathan Taylor was, I don't remember if he was holding out or he was hurt. I think he was hurt and then got hurt again late in the year. I love what Cincinnati did with the running back room. They got younger by getting rid of Joe Mixon, who they traded. They were going to get some sort of asset in return in that trade. They get Zach Moss, and then you've got Chase Brown as a 1-2 punch for the Cincinnati Bengals. I love that tandem in Cincinnati.
I'm guessing they'll probably draft somebody too, get somebody cheap in there.
I'll tell you the one that I hate and doesn't make any sense, what the Green Bay Packers did.
I'm a little confused by that as well.
So apparently they tried to tell Aaron Jones, like, hey, we want you to stay. You're taking 50% less salary. Like, why would you sign somebody and then try and convince your already running back, who is the star of that team, to take less money?
He's younger. He's less hurt. He's 3 years younger than Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones has dealt with a lot of injuries over the last couple of seasons. They are, I'm guessing they just wanted to get bigger, stronger, a little more physical, and all of that applies to Josh Jacobs. I like Josh Jacobs a lot. I think he's a really good running back, but I did find that one to be the most strange. Like, I don't know that they necessarily got a ton better by adding Josh Jacobs instead of Aaron Jones. The guy that I'm going to point to, I'm surprised neither of you said him, is Saquon Barkley.
I did like that one too.
Going to Philly? I mean, that's a perfect landing spot, dude. I understand that they're now going to be without Jason Kelce, but they've got Landon Dickerson in place, who's a really good offensive lineman. He's going to be bumping over from guard to center, his natural position previously. I think Saquon's going to be amazing there. I think we're going to realize almost immediately, oh my God, the Giants were terrible. They had an awful offensive line almost his entire time there. They had no quarterback. Now he's going to a place with a running threat at quarterback, 2 excellent wide receivers, and an amazing offensive line that's been in place with one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. Yeah, Saquon's going to be great there.
That feels like a David Montgomery Detroit, how good he was that first season. That's what it feels like Saquon's going to be.
100%. You're going to immediately see, like DeAndre Swift, I don't think is a particularly good running back. Yeah. He ended up signing with Chicago. He'll be fine there. I think you're going to see a massive gap in what Saquon brings to the table compared to what they've had at that position in recent years. He is special. He needs to stay healthy. That's always been a problem for him, but I think Saquon's going to be amazing. And if you're doing a fantasy draft this year, I mean, not that you didn't know the name previously, but Saquon should be a first-round pick in fantasy for the upcoming season. Absolutely.
Whoa.
Saquon might be top 5 for me.
You don't like running backs?
Well, in fantasy. You're right, I don't. But for fantasy football, I would definitely be taking Saquon.
Oh, yeah, I would take him. Honestly, I would take Derrick Henry high, too.
Because for how much,
how much they got into the red zone last year and couldn't convert, yeah, you'll convert now.
Listen to the guy that's won the league back-to-back years.
Shut up. You got lucky. You got lucky.
Next thing up as we go through NFL quick hitters. Guys, was there a team that stood out to you in terms of how much they improved from day one of free agency? This is always kind of a fool's gold situation where somebody makes a bunch of moves and you're like, they won the offseason. And then you get to the regular season, you're like, oh, yeah, that's why those players were available. But did somebody stand out to you?
I mean, I like Detroit's move, and I still don't think Detroit is done. They traded for what's-his-face from Tampa Bay. The cornerback?
The corner, yeah.
Carlton Davis.
Yeah, Carlton Davis. Thank you. For some reason, I was thinking the safety that re-signed in Tampa. I like that move because we talked so much about how their secondary needed to be fixed. I still don't believe Detroit is done. I wonder if Detroit is going to really try and take a run at L'Jarius Sneed, or if Joey Bosa does become available, they try and trade for him from the Chargers. They feel like there's more to come, but they fixed their biggest issue, which was their defense in the secondary. I also liked Houston's move, getting a running back, and that's a really good running back that they signed.
Yeah, I really liked, and this one's no surprise, but I liked what the Rams do where you add in a guard that helps protect your quarterback. I love that deal for them, and they kept their number 3 wide receivers, so they're kind of running
$22 $22 million to Colby Parkinson is a fireable offense.
Yeah, that one I wasn't as sold on, but I love the addition of the guard because they know, hey, it's a limited window with Matthew Stafford, and the healthier you can keep him, the more upright you can keep him, A, the better he's going to perform on the field, and B, the longer he can last in the league. The other one that I really liked that was a small signing was San Francisco getting Leonard Floyd. I love that signing. They needed to get an edge to be on the other side of Bosa. They brought in Chase Young last year at the deadline. Let's be honest, that was not a success. I love the fact that they brought in Leonard Floyd. I know they cut, I think it was Armstead early on in the day, but I do like the fact that they now have kind of a 1-2 punch on both edges.
Also, didn't even say the Falcons. Obviously, the Falcons.
That's the team. The Falcons are the team that improved themselves the most yesterday because they got the quarterback, and there's nobody else that got a legit quarterback yesterday.
What about Minnesota?
Yeah, they signed Sam Darnold.
If you want to talk about teams that got worse, that's one of them.
Listening to the national radio talk about that signing was fantastic this morning on my drive in.
So, can I say Las Vegas? Am I allowed to say that?
I did like what they did. I do like their idea.
I still think they should have just traded for Justin Fields.
Their quarterback.
I think they're going to draft somebody. I think what they told you yesterday with their actions was, we've got a guy in place now in Gardner Minshew that can start for us if we need to. They're doing this year what Indianapolis did last year. Sign Gardner Minshew, get into the draft, and then be super aggressive to get your guy. Whoever your guy is, go get him. I think that's what they're going to do. And I think Christian Wilkins is a great fit there. I think that it's a ton of money. They way overpaid for him, but Christian Wilkins is an awesome football player. And when you can pair him with Max Crosby on that defensive line, all right, I get where you're trying to go with that as your plan. The other team that I would throw in here, and I said to you, Alex, just a minute ago that I thought it was a little confusing as to why they went this way. I think Green Bay got better. Green Bay got better yesterday because they got Xavier McKinney as a safety. They needed a safety so badly, and he's a good one previously with the Giants. And they were able to bring in a running back that, while I think it's a bit confusing, is more of a sure thing moving forward than what Aaron Jones was previously.
We didn't even talk. The team that just made a signing is the team that was the best offseason. Kansas City Chiefs got Irv Smith Jr.
Yeah.
Sure. Why not? Nice number 2 tight end.
Oh, yeah. I had Irv Smith on my fantasy team for like a day.
Probably looking at wide receivers right now.
That's the first move of significance they made in free agency, which tells you everything
they signed Chris Jones, man.
Yeah, that's true. That was a pretty big one.
3P.
I mean, it's a fine signing, but nobody in our audience cares about that right now. All right, final thing here. Who was the team that you left day one of free agency saying, what the hell are you doing?
Want to say it together? 1, 2, 3.
Carolina.
Minnesota.
I was gonna yell Dallas.
All right, we've got 3 different answers. What do you got?
I thought we were all going to be on the same page about Sam Darnold being QB1.
I was gonna yell Dallas. Dallas literally got rid of their running back, and they haven't signed anybody. They're like, we're good with who? Spencer Dinwiddle?
Yeah,
we're
Deuce
good.
Vaughn, baby.
We're what? Dinwiddle?
You just did what Mo did yesterday.
Yeah, well, cool, but at least he's not on my roster. I don't have to worry about him. Like, what are they doing? You're paying your quarterback a ton of money. Your offense sucked in the playoffs, and you didn't upgrade your offense this offseason. What the heck? And Mike McCarthy's still your damn coach. What are you doing?
Dak Prescott's brother is apparently asking the same question. T-Bone, why did you say it's... Who is it?
Minnesota.
Minnesota!
Because I don't understand
Sam
what they're
Darnold.
doing.
That's
It's
it.
so that and
They
like
got Aaron
if you're going to
Jones.
go the route of because I'm assuming they signed Darnold and I guess they're thinking a quarterback's falling to him at 11. Like maybe they're going to try and get in on the JJ McCarthy
Hell yeah,
sweepstakes.
Hell yeah,
Like,
brother.
Yikes.
Michael Penix, Bo Nix, one of those three.
Not
As they
Bo
said in
Nix.
Scooby Doo, zoinks. I am very
How do you
concerned.
make that reference?
So I don't understand it from the perspective of, okay, if you are going to go that route, and I can totally understand what their thought process was, we're not going to give Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed coming off an Achilles injuries and checks notes he's old. But then you go out and you sign an edge to a decent contract and say, we're going to build this great defense. Well, if that's the case, you should have just brought back Kirk Cousins as well. You then have a quarterback that I feel confident about actually getting the ball to Justin Jefferson, who's probably crying right now that Sam Darnold's listed as QB1. And they draft a quarterback at 11. It's probably McCarthy. He's still going to be crying. Like, Justin Jefferson, demand a trade.
If you listen quietly, Justin Jefferson's already demanding a trade in Minnesota.
I hope so, man.
The text was already sent.
That is the best
definitely
fantasy
should
football
not.
weapon.
He definitely should not sign an extension.
hell no.
Hey, Justin. Hey, Justin. Just play this thing out.
Yeah, we'll be your representative.
Give it some time. You'll get the A.J. Brown,
Chiefs are gonna
Tyreek
call you.
Hill treatment.
Yeah,
You're going
Chiefs.
somewhere with. You're probably going to be in Chicago next year, where they've got a young rookie quarterback.
Just keep Justin Fields then if you're going to do that.
Just chill out for a little bit. Give yourself some time. You'll get to a better position. All right, the Panthers are clearly the correct answer here, though. Here's what they have done over the course of the last
Their ass.
18
It doesn't
months.
matter.
They have traded the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, a top 10 pick in last year's draft, a top 50 pick in last year's draft, another round 1 pick, and another round 1 pick in terms of, on top of everything that I just mentioned, in exchange for 1 year of Brian Burns, Bryce Young, DJ Johnson, who was the 125th highest graded edge rusher by Pro Football Focus last year, and 2 fifth-round picks. So you gave up 4 first-round picks, a second-round pick, Christian McCaffrey, and DJ Moore for 1 year of Brian Burns, Bryce Young, who's 5'10" and can't see over his offensive line,
Makes it
DJ
hard.
Johnson, and 2 fifth-round picks. And oh, by the way, yesterday, because Bryce Young couldn't figure out where to throw the football last year, they had to pay $100 million for a really solid offensive guard. $100 million.
Let's all say it. Blow it up. Blow
They
it
already
up.
did.
Oh,
They have no direction whatsoever. They don't know who they are. I don't know who they are. The Brian Burns deal where they passed
That
up
was so
2
bad.
first-round
The
picks.
Rams offered 2 firsts like a year ago, 2 years ago.
If you do that, you've got to re-sign him. And instead, they send him to New York for a second-round pick. Just a legitimately baffling way to operate a franchise right now. The Panthers have taken over the mantle from the Washington Commanders as the worst-run organization in the NFL. There is no close second. Carolina, congratulations. At least you're the best at something. Questions and answers is coming up next. With Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. We got to tell you about our friends over at Green Envy. Alex, I went on a walk through the neighborhood yesterday with baby Luca. We're looking around, and you know how this works. You're kind of judging everybody's yards, right, as you walk by. And for me, I don't have to worry about the judgment that other people are giving me. Not because I do such a great job with my lawn care, but because I put Green Envy in charge of that. I've got a baby boy running around the house. I don't have a ton of time for all of this stuff, so I let Green Envy take care of it for me. You should do the same. Give them a call today, Alex.
Man, I've already got that luscious green grass growing in my backyard. I've set aside time to cut it this week because I look forward to doing that. Green Envy has changed the look of my backyard. And look, weeds are always a problem at this time of the year. Crabgrass becomes a massive problem with all of the moisture, and I don't worry about any of those thanks to Green Envy. Their service professionals are licensed applicators certified by the Missouri Department of Agriculture. They come out, they do the work, they leave you a note saying what they did, and then they tell you how to maintain the best looking lawn until they return the next time around. They're open 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday, or Saturday from 9 to 1. Give them a call and say BK and Ferrario sent you. 636-757-1600, 636-757-1600.
All right, rapid fire, JR, coming up here in just a little bit. Alex, let's start with this one from the 309. How many good defensemen are in this year's NHL draft?
I think there's 5, which means you're going to have to draft in the top 10 if you want to get a legit number 1 defenseman.
From the 314, guys, what's the worst contract in pro sports right now? Justin here. and they said not Russell Wilson. It's Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is the worst contract in all of sports.
Carlos Rodon giving him a run for his money.
Jonathan Huberdeau giving him a run for the money also.
King Henry to the Ravens. Do you think that it'll work? Absolutely. I think it'll be good. I don't know that it'll be what people are hoping for, though, based on the name recognition. But I think it'll work.
I think it works if he stays healthy because they have a legit red zone threat every time they enter it.
Who's going to be the Dallas Cowboys running back next year?
Spencer Dinwiddie.
No, wait,
Deuce
that's a basketball player.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, he'd be good.
Dowdle. Rico Dowdle is who you're thinking of.
Same thing.
Didn't you even say that last segment, too?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Deuce Vaughn, baby.
No, yeah.
They're probably going to draft somebody.
They're going to draft multiple running backs, and that'll be who they go with. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 618. Guys, coincidence that Matt Kessel gets brought up and the Blues immediately win again?
No, they're 4 games above 500 when Matt Kessel plays, and they're 1 game under 500 when he doesn't play.
And final thing here, guys, do you think that the Bears will eventually keep Justin Fields, or will he end up going somewhere? I think he'll go somewhere.
I think they should keep him and not draft Caleb Williams and draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and load up.
I think one of the Ravens or the Eagles will end up trading for him. And it'll be like a conditional 4th round
and
pick.
then he'll fly like an eagle.
Coming up next, Jeremy Rutherford, Blues Insider here on 101 ESPN. All right, happy to go out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic. Be sure to follow him on Twitter. He's at JP Rutherford. Has a great piece up right now over on The Athletic. Questions and answers that he did with Zach Dean, the Blues prospect that got the call to the show last night. JR, appreciate the time as always, man. What was your reaction? Let's start with this. When you saw the news that the Blues were calling up Zach Dean, it came as a bit of a surprise to us.
Yeah, a little bit of anticipation just because a couple of days earlier when we met with Doug Armstrong at the trade deadline, he said that a couple of young guys would get the call up. And, after the trade deadline, the rosters can expand past the 23 maximum, but obviously you still have to be under the salary cap. So, 6 points out, as you guys have discussed, it's a precarious situation because you're still trying to see if you can make the playoffs, but at the same time you want to get these young guys playing. And I know that Bolduc and Dean are two guys that they really want to get a good look at. So perhaps we'll see Dean in the next couple games.
Jer, they have one more call-up, if I'm not mistaken, other than like emergencies if that's needed. Do you anticipate any other player getting recalled by the Blues, or do they hold on to that just in case?
I think they'll probably hang on to it. Now, you have the 4, and they've used 3 of them. And if people are wondering, who the 3 are, Bolduc is included in one of them because it was a paper transaction. They want him eligible for the American Hockey League playoffs, so they put him down and then called him back up, just like I said, a paper transaction. And then you had Matt Kessel, and then you had Dean. So even if they were to call up somebody from Springfield and use that 4th one, you still have emergency recalls. So it's not like you're in total bad shape if you do use the 4. But I think they'll hang on to it. I don't know off the top of my head who a guy that they're just dying to get a look at this point. I think obviously Kessel's been really good up here, and Bolduc and Dean are the 3 that they want to see.
Jer, what do you anticipate the role being for Dean once he is into the lineup? I would assume they didn't just call him up to be here. I have to imagine he's going to be in the lineup pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would think so. Now, I was kind of looking at that myself. Good game for the team last night. Usually coaches don't like to mix things up, mix the lineup up after a game like they played last night. Plus, L.A. is the opponent tomorrow. That's the team you're kind of battling for one of those playoff spots. So my guess, if I'm just guessing, is that Dean wouldn't play tomorrow night. He'd come in and probably get a practice with the team and then play maybe the next game. But when he gets in there, I think he's going to play center. I asked Drew Bannister that last night. He mentioned the fact that he's a true center. They did move him to wing for part of the year in Springfield. He got some traction on the way he was playing, and then moved back to center and has been playing really well. So I said, do you plan to keep him at center? He said, yeah. So my guess is you'd probably see Todd Hayes and Kapanen together on that 3rd line. Maybe Walker comes out, and then it's Toropchenko, Dean, and Sundqvist on that 4th line.
So, JR, by the way, that's a great line combination that you expected there, JR.
I'm so annoyed. No,
Someone very intelligent said that earlier on the show, and then there's somebody who's not as intelligent tried to argue with him about it.
And it wasn't me, by the way.
Yeah, well,
Well, it could go either way. It's just, Kapanen, gets the goal last night, and little help from that assist guy, Mr. Dorr. But he, you could tell, in the locker room last night, visiting locker room, that Kapanen, a little weight off the shoulders, feeling pretty good. So, if they're going to try to make a last-ditch, run at these playoffs, they're going to need those types of players to play well. So, we'll see what Kapanen does if he's in the lineup tomorrow.
Jared, no need to explain yourself. Just say Alex was right and then just move on with that one. So one thing that
I'll let you say it.
We talked about this in the open of the show. It feels so odd to be in this spot for me because you look at it and you know that the playoffs are right there, but if you miss the playoffs, you don't get a good draft pick, and it feels like you're stuck in purgatory. Is it best for this team, in your opinion, to get into the playoffs, or would it be better for this team to really be focusing on trying to get a better draft pick?
Yeah, it's just a tough situation. Like, I'm always pro playoffs. I heard what you said earlier, and I agree with you. A lot of the great minds of the game, the Ken Hitchcocks and those guys that have said it's great to get experience for these guys. And I always say this, just because you pick 11th, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a better, longer-term NHL player than if you pick 15th or 16th. And maybe that playoff experience for some of your younger guys outweighs maybe the little bit of a better player that you get. Who knows? So, you can analyze that situation all day long. I just think it's really intriguing. What do the Blues do? Who are they putting in the lineup? because of the situation, because you still have a chance. I mean, we can sit here and talk about the Blues being 6 points behind Vegas, and then they're, I think, 8 behind L.A. But look at the schedule coming up. 17 games left. 11 of them are at home. 6 of them are away. And let me run through what I think are the good opponents and the bad opponents. You have good L.A., Colorado, Vegas, Edmonton, Nashville, Carolina, Dallas. So 7 of your last 17 games are against good playoff teams. And then look at the bad. 2 against Minnesota, 2 against Anaheim, 1 against Ottawa, 1 against Calgary, 2 against San Jose, 1 against Chicago, and 1 against Seattle. So that's 10 that are out of the playoff picture. Hey, when we hang up, I don't want people to think that I say, hey, the Blues have a chance at the playoffs. This is going to be a long shot. You can go 9-1 in your next 10 and make up 2 or 3 points. It's that difficult this time of year. But I just think they're in a tough situation because you do want to see what these young guys can do. But at the same time, those playoffs, as a long shot of it is, they're still in reach.
We said the exact same thing earlier. Like, if you're optimistic, it's probably due to the schedule. If you're pessimistic, it's because you've watched, 60 some odd games. Say hello to your dog for us.
Yeah, they hate your opinion
of this
too.
Blues team. So you can see either perspective, and then depending on where you're at with the draft pick, like there's just a lot kind of hanging in the balance here. Jer, final thing that I wanted to get to with you, you got the picture from last night of the Stanley Cup champion Blues along with the newest member of the Boston Bruins, and that being, of course, Pat Maroon, hanging out there last night. What was it like to see Maroon back with the guys in the locker room?
Yeah, just a second. BK and Ferrario said hi, Hank.
I love that your dog's name is Hank.
It was last night. They won the game and guys were excited. But I came out of the locker room and I looked down the hallway and I had heard that Maroon was in the building. For people who don't know, he just got traded from Minnesota to Boston. He had back surgery a while back, about a week back, and so he has a situation
Different show.
on your
We
show.
don't do
We
that.
just did that on your show. It was a situation where Pat Maroon was saying hi to, at the time, it was just a couple guys. Like, I think it was just Colton Parayko and maybe Jordan Binnington. But then after a couple minutes, I just kept watching, the interaction, and all of a sudden, here comes Robert Thomas, here comes Braden Shen, and all of a sudden, there's the Stanley Cup. Here comes Oscar Sundqvist. There's the Stanley Cup team from 2019, the 5 Blues that are left, and Pat Maroon, and they just sat there and bro hugged for a couple minutes, and I asked if I could pop a picture, and they said sure, and I sent them a copy of the picture. You're getting a thumbs up and a like from a couple of them. I think those are situations that, in 20 years, they're going to be able to look back and really reflect. But I think now they know what it meant, what they did a few years ago, and anytime they can catch up and see each other, it's a good time.
You didn't ask Torrey Krug if he wanted to be in the picture?
No. That's funny. He was about 50 feet.
Jared didn't hit him. At first, he was like, no, you idiot. He wasn't on the team.
He was about 50 feet down the hallway, and I think he had about 300 people at the game last night. But funny you say that because when I did walk past him after taking that picture, I was like, he probably would not have been a guy to pose for that one.
Hey, Torrey, come here. We're taking a Stanley Cup picture. Come here. Hey, hold on. We're going to get the winners first, and then come on in.
Look at the losers.
We'll get you in here. It's kind of like wedding photos, right? You got the immediate family first, and then you keep adding in from the outside.
Hey, JR, I do have one more serious hockey question, because I know you asked Drew Bannister this for us yesterday, and we appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
Of why Jake Neighbors isn't playing up there. And I understand his reasoning behind it. But on the other hand, I don't, because you're not getting offense from your Thomas and Kyrou line. It hasn't been working for the last 12 games. At what point does he look at that and say, we got to stop trying making this work? Let's break up Thomas and Kyrou and see who else works up there.
Yeah, first of all, I just want you guys to always know that I'm there for you.
Always.
Anytime you guys are tweeting or asking questions on the show, I'm there to take those questions to Drew Bannister at the interviews. And I did ask him that yesterday, and he just said, hey, look, Neighbors produces wherever he's at. I'm sure you guys talked about his response. And right now, we like Jordan Kyrou in that spot. I know they've played Neighbors at left and right. It gave me the impression that they like him more at right. That's where he's playing. And he referenced that we like Jordan Kyrou in that spot on that top line. So it gave the impression that they, wouldn't necessarily play Neighbors on that left side. But here's what I think about it. I don't disagree with you guys whatsoever. Hey, play Neighbors on that top line. He played there early in the year and looked great. Here's the thing. If this offense was just like, mediocre, then you could say, hey, move this guy here. I mean, this offense right now, outside of last night, has just been atrocious for, weeks and weeks. So it's almost like Drew Bannister did last night. Just throw the names in a hat, put Booch back at center, even if he doesn't like it and doesn't do well in faceoffs, and see what they can do. Like he just like blew it up last night, and they beat Boston 5-1. So that just shows me that I don't know that the line combinations matter much at this point. They just need guys who can produce.
I just don't get it, JR.
You can put him on the left side, and you can play him with Kyrou. It's not an either-or. It doesn't have to be a one guy or the other.
Or why can't we just try like Kyrou and Shen worked together very well earlier this season? And JR, I'm not yelling at you. I'm just yelling at the clouds right now.
You just happen to be the person that's on the other line of this conversation.
I'll do the same with Curbs tomorrow and Joey on Thursday, but they did it like a 10-game stretch earlier this season when it was Buchnevich, Thomas, and Neighbors. Kyrou was with Shen and Saad, and all 6 of those players were point-per-game players.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. And, whether it's different opponents, different circumstances down the stretch, and they don't produce the way they did, at least you tried it. I totally get the point, but I'm just saying that by and large, with this offense, the way it's been going, let's say you had some success with that group. I see 3 other lines that probably aren't going to do much, and the Blues are going to score 1 or 2 goals. I mean, and last night was obviously the outlier. I just think that this offense needs, a lot more going for it than, hey, put this guy here and it's probably going to work. And I get it. You have to do those things, and you have to do what's worked in the past, and it could work if they tried that. All I'm saying is that if you're a playoff team and you're third place in the Central and you lost a couple in a row, hey, do this. Put Neighbors back in that spot where he had success. I just think we're talking about a different animal with this offense or lack thereof offense for a really long time right now.
And JR, I agree with you. My point on this is not even about this season. Find out if that's a long-term answer for you. Like, I have set 2024 aside. Now, I know a lot of our listeners, and we just went through a little bit ago why people wouldn't do that, and maybe the team has it. But for me, like, hey, do you need a top-line left winger going into next year? Real question that the team kind of needs to get figured out. And if you can see if that works between those 3, maybe you're able to find an answer there, and then you find out, hey, can Shin be the center for the Booch line, or can Shin be on the off wing with Booch, and maybe that helps you out when it comes to faceoffs. Whatever the reason, I've given my answer.
No, I hear you. Did you put 24 aside? Does Tanner have the soundbite from like 3 weeks ago on the Blues train?
Hasn't quite worked the way that we hoped. JR, appreciate the time, man.
Yep, thanks, boys.
Tell Hank we said hello. All right, that's JR. Man. Appreciate his time as always. Sorry for yelling at him.
I started yelling during his answer because the 636 texted and said, you should have had Tori take the picture, and instead of cheese said, say 2019.
Should we take a second here on the Jake Neighbors thing, or just...
Absolutely. Let's come back on the other side because you've jacked this clock up.
Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Better to Forget It here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You give us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it. But first, we'll get to our rounds of Bet It or Forget It. Alex, I want to start with Victor Scott, who in the first inning reached on a bunt single as a leadoff hitter. Bunt single, excuse me. Stole second. Then Mason Wynn walked, and Alec Burleson singled in Victor Scott, who again got on with a bunt, stole second, and then scored on a single. Bet it or forget it. Victor Scott's your opening day center fielder.
Man, I want to say bet it, but I don't. This Cardinals team doesn't do this. When John Mozeliak uses the words, we have to be patient with him, you know what that means.
By the way, he did this against Brian Bello, who's a really good starter. I'm going to
say forget this, and I hate it because it should be an absolute bet it. But you ask me, bet it or forget it, the Cardinals will have him as starting center fielder. And I don't believe the Cardinals will. I believe the starting center fielder will be Dylan Carlson with Alec Burleson in left field and Michael Sinise on the bench.
I will bet this. And for all the talk of the skepticism around the Cardinals and the man they like to take the easy way out, which they do, as we saw in their offseason, I do remember them bringing Jordan Walker last year. And
but he was the best prospect in baseball at the time.
Victor Scott's a pretty high prospect as well. And Victor Scott
pretty high isn't the best.
Probably, but I mean, he's arguably their best prospect right now.
Biggest thing right now is opportunity. The opportunity is there. And where like Mason Wynn, if Tommy Edman and Paul DeYoung were hurt in camp last year, I do wonder what the plan would have been with Mason Wynn. We'll never find out. It's one of those sliding door moments. But had they both gotten hurt, maybe they would have considered bringing Mason Wynn on the opening day roster.
Let's remember last year, like the outfield was not like wide open for Jordan Walker. And I remember them preaching patience with Walker last year too, of like, well, let's see how camp goes, and then we'll kind of figure it out. Next thing you know, Walker's your starting outfielder, and Dylan Carlson got benched.
He struggled the second half of camp. Yeah. They kind of made that decision about now, and then the last 2 weeks, he had some struggles prior to opening day.
I would bet this. I think they're going to bring Victor Scott. Unless he just absolutely tails off, I think they're getting too much flack for taking the easy way out. Even though I do tend to agree they typically do that, I don't think they would do this with Scott.
I think they should be criticized at this point for not bringing him to opening day
I'd agree.
Games with them, because he's showing you what you need to see. Somebody on the text line from the 618 said, guys, he's bunted for a hit. It's not like he laced 110-mile-per-hour line drive single. The bat isn't ready yet. Nobody did that the other day.
Well, technically, the bat did get him on base.
The last time that he was in the lineup, he hit a 107-mile-per-hour single. So whether you want to see that, I actually find it to be really valuable that he can lay down a bunt for a single. I think that's an important skill for a guy with his specific skill set to be able to do. It's something that you never saw from Mag Sierra. It's something that you haven't really seen up to this point from a guy like Elly De La Cruz, because he hits the ball so damn hard that he's just going to keep trying to swing and striking out 35% of the time at the major league level. If this is a skill that Victor Scott has that is consistent, and from everything that you see from the scouting reports and people that have watched him down in the minors, it is. I want that guy on my opening day roster. Give me the speed. Give me the defense. I'll figure out the offense. Alex said it right the other day, I think you did. It's about the other 6 guys at the top of your order that you're going to be judging your offense on. I need somebody in center that can play defense. Last year you didn't have it enough, and it's what led the season to going completely off the rails. Bring Victor Scott up on opening day. I'm betting it. I'm fearful that they won't get there, though. Alex, what do you got?
I'm actually going to steal one from the text line for mine because I think this is a good question.
Yeah.
Bet it or forget it. At this point, Bannister has to be your coach for the next few years because, let's be honest, what other better coach would want this job? I'm forgetting that. I do not believe that you hire Bannister because no other coaches want this job. As bad as we're making it out to be, you have one of the top 10 best pipelines in hockey. You have a number 1 center, a number 1 defenseman, and a goaltender who is making what should be a top 3 pick in the National Hockey League, a playoff contender, and you're going to have money to spend and potentially a top 10 pick again this year. I'm forgetting this. I think if there's a coach out there, you take a shot at that you feel like is better and helps this team get to a playoff spot in the offseason. No disrespect to Bannister, but it comes down to who's out there.
Oh, man, this is tough. I think I would bet it. Guys, I feel the Blues are stuck. And when I say that, I don't say it in a good way. I understand that they've got a decent pipeline, but really it's Snuggerud, Dvorsky, and then it's just it. Dean's kind of okay. We'll see what he looks like. Bolduc's kind of okay. We'll see what he looks like. But I think it just depends on what is the future. And I think that's the thing that Army's got to sell the new head coach on if he's bringing somebody in. Because what are you doing with the top line? Robert Thomas is a legitimate top-line player. Kyrou and Buch aren't. What are you doing with Buchnevich? He's a free agent at the end of next year. What are you doing with Kyrou? Because guess who's no move or no trade kicks in next year? It's Jordan Kyrou's. Like, I think there is a lot of unknown, and I feel the Blues are stuck. And the defensive core to me is not great. The only plus is Robert Thomas, a number one centerman, Colton Parayko, number one defenseman, and two legitimate goalies that I trust. Outside of that, though, I have serious concerns about this roster. If I'm a coach looking to win, I don't know if I'm taking the Blues job.
Yeah, I'm forgetting this because no other coach would want it. I think we have seen in the NHL that, man, there's only 30 of these, 32 of these, whatever. That is not a situation where you're not going to be able to appeal to good coaches. Good coaches want NHL jobs, and there's a lot of good coaches out there. And frankly, a lot of good coaches get fired. So there's going to be some that become available this offseason based on what happens in the postseason as well. Where I do think that you can make a case for Bannister, though, is what T-Bone just said. The Blues are in the middle of a retool right now. They are not going to be done with this next year. In fact, it is very likely going to get worse in terms of the results next year than it was this year. Because by next year, you're going to have more of the young players in your lineup, which means more of the roller coaster ride. Where one game, man, it's going to look really good. You're going to see Bolduc having some moments. You're going to have Snuggerud who will have some moments. Maybe next year you see Dvorsky at some point in the year, kind of like right now what we're seeing with Zach Dean. By the way, Zach Dean will likely be in your lineup next year. Those are going to be spots that were previously inhabited by veterans who are less of the up and down roller coaster of an experience. So I do see how you can get yourself to a place where you say, you know what, let Bannister have this transition period for us, and then we'll hire the coach that we really wants to be the contender. It sounds harsh, but could be the reality. But I don't think it's because they won't appeal to any other coaches out there.
I believe their team looks different next year, and your team looks more competitive next year because I think Doug Armstrong has figured out that this is a roster problem, and now it's a matter of making the changes in the offseason.
T-Bone?
Guys, bet it or forget it. We will see Sonny Gray on opening day for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Forget it.
And are you saying on the roster or as the starter?
As the starter.
Okay. Yeah,
forget it. I do not think he will start that game.
I think they're going to be cautious. I think he'll tell them he wants to pitch, and they'll say, no, we'll get you in the second or third game. Michaelis will start.
They'll find a way to get him on the home opener.
Yeah,
scheduling-wise. I think it was supposed to be Michaelis, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So Michaelis will start, and you just put Sonny Gray in Michaelis' spot.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you guys, but man, the more I hear Sonny Gray talk, the more I'm going,
Of course he's going to say it.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm thinking is this son of a gun's going to convince Ollie that he should be the starter on opening day.
And then
he's got the fire, he's got the passion.
And then he re-tears his hammy, and he's out for another 2 months.
I actually, I know we kind of were like, oh my God, I need a starter when the news came out it was a mild hamstring strain. I actually don't think it's as bad as we even originally thought. So I'm going to bet this. I'm going to be optimistic that he's going to start opening day against. It sounds like it's going to be Tyler Glasnow and Yamamoto for games 1 and 2 against the Cardinals.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, Bet It or Forget It, Army will find a way to get out of at least 2 of the bad contracts during this offseason.
I guess it depends on what you label as bad contracts.
Go with whatever
term. I mean, I would at least 2. I would say bet it, because I think you can make one type of hockey trade, and I think you can make a trade with another one and get a piece. There will be a team that looks. I'll just be blunt about this. You're going to trade a defenseman probably for a low-level player, but it will be somebody that you hope you have the Travis Sanheim resurgence, and you'll trade a Kyrou or a Buchnevich in a hockey trade to make your team better.
I'll forget it. I think maybe he could get out of 1. I don't know if he can get out of 2. And I know BK disagrees with. I think he found out at the deadline he's stuck with a bunch of contracts. And I know your counterpoint is fair of you're not trading a lot of term at the deadline. I think he was also setting up conversations in the offseason. Sure. And him coming out and saying nobody wanted anything on our roster was red alarm bells to me. So I'll say forget it.
Would you consider getting out of buying out?
I don't think they're going to do that, but sure.
Because I think that's also in the cards also for the team.
I think this team limits itself with what it's willing to do, and I think it ends up being a problem for them. It hinders what they're able to do. They do not buy out contracts, and they do not give no-move clauses. You are essentially saying, out of all of the tools that are available to us, kind of like the Cardinals, where they don't give out long-term big money extensions. They'll trade for contracts that are long-term, but they will not give them themselves. I think it limits what they're willing and able to do. I think this is something that limits what the Blues are willing and able to do. Final thing here, better to forget it. Lamar ends up with more rushing touchdowns than Derrick Henry in 2024.
Forget it. I mean, this team got to the red zone so much last year and didn't score. Derrick Henry is going to be a pest for them, and I think you'll be looking at Derrick Henry as the best contract out of all those running backs this upcoming season.
I think he ends up with a ton of touchdowns. I don't know that he'll get the yards that people are expecting, but I think touchdown-wise, oh yeah, he's going to get a ton of them, yes.
Yeah, I would forget it as well. I think Henry's going to get a ton of touchdowns. He's going to clearly be their best. They didn't really have a red zone back last year. Like, I guess they kind of made Gus Edwards that, but he's not anything special. I would forget this. I think Henry's going to be that guy.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer, but coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. The Cardinals are clearly treating center field as an open tryout. How do you guys feel about the Victor Scott, Dylan Carlson, potentially Michael A. Taylor situation? Want to hear from you, either via the text line, the YouTube chat at youtube.com/101ESPN STL, or the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my dentist, 100 West Dental. Dr. Pryor and his team have given me the satisfaction of being comfortable with my dentist. And look, when it comes to going to the dentist, that comfort is the most important part, because never did I think I would have to worry about what the dentist was doing in the past. I had gone to the same dentist for over 13 years. Every regular checkup, 6 months, it would be the same old, open your mouth, no cavities, good to go. We'll see you next time. Next thing I know, they missed a tumor that was there for 8 years, lost 7 teeth, had a tumor, had nerve damage on my lip. It was a nightmare. Now I have the comfort knowing that my dentist, Dr. Pryor and his team, are all about the preventative procedure, making sure that they're taking care of you and your mouth for the long run. They're about early detection, and they do that with the most modern technology that they have in this business. So make sure you get out there, tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, and if you don't have dental insurance, they have a membership discount plan that aids in the cost of dental work for those that don't have the dental insurance. So get with the best when it comes to your dentist, 100 West Dental. Check them out online, 100westdental.com.
Tara Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Blues beat the Bruins last night 5-1. They'll be back in action tomorrow night as they host the LA Kings. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5:30 with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Carver for puck drop at 6:30. Cardinals currently in spring training action as they're taking on the Boston Red Sox. They are tied 2-2 in the bottom of the second. Matthew DeLibertor getting the start for St. Louis. In NFL news, Derrick Henry has signed a 2-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens. The Sports Update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
So what do you do with this outfield? Later on this year, we know it's going to be eventually, probably Lars Nootbaar, Tommy Edman, or Victor Scott and Jordan Walker, barring something unforeseen with injuries. That's the way the Cardinals were hoping the outfield would go. But right now, we have the injuries. Tommy Edman not expected to be ready by opening day. Lars Nootbaar has the 2 non-displaced rib fractures. We'll see what his status is. I would be pretty surprised at this point if he's ready by opening day. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's longer, but not on opening day most likely. So how do you approach this? That is the question that I was wondering prior to the last few days, Alex. And what we have seen so far is Cardinals appear to be approaching this as if it's an open competition. They had Dylan Carlson the other day take 4 at-bats. None of your other regulars in the lineup took more than 3. That's noteworthy. Listen to their actions, not their words. So today, you have Victor Scott in the lineup. That's not all that surprising. Most of the young guys are down there in this game on the road against Boston. What is noteworthy is that he's leading off for the team. And to start things off, a bunt single, stole second, scores on a single. Alex, how do you view this in terms of what you want to see from those 2 guys and how that influences what the Cardinals do for opening day?
The way that I view this is we're talking about one spot in its center field. I look at the Cardinals looking at Alec Burleson and saying, you know what, for 2 weeks, you're going to be our left fielder. I know the defense isn't going to be pretty, but we want the bat in the lineup, especially because he's been hitting in spring training. And to me, it feels like the Cardinals already know what Dylan Carlson is. They want to see if Victor Scott can outperform Dylan Carlson, because right now, as it stands, if you gave him truth serum, I wonder if they would tell you, yeah, it's Carlson, Burleson, and Walker that are starting in the outfield for us, and Victor Scott will start in Memphis. But if Victor Scott, who's getting all of these leadoff opportunities because he's seeing the most at-bats possible, they want to see how he does in that spot, they're giving him every leeway possible to outperform Dylan Carlson, which pushes Carlson to left field and pushes Burleson to the bench. And that's the competition I think is happening right now. In a perfect world, they want that to be Victor Scott has said he is the center fielder and we'll put Carlson in left and Burleson's the extra. But I look at it as the Cardinals already feel like they know where it is because they want to be patient with Scott. Michael Ciani's on your bench, and Burleson and Carlson are your 2 outfielders.
I think right now they know Scott's their starting center fielder. And I think what they're doing is they're waiting to see if it falls off. And that's why they're giving him every opportunity to say, okay, go out there. You've earned to still be in big league camp. Because I think they probably thought coming into this, we'll showcase Victor Scott, but after like 2 weeks, you start to cut down the roster, he'll probably go down to minor league camp. Well, he's still been playing well. He's hitting the ball well. He's playing good defense. He's causing havoc on the base pass like he did earlier today.
He just had another single.
Oh, I love this guy.
Today.
Was it a bunt single, though? Those don't matter.
It was baseball savant's down right now, but it was some kind of fly ball. So.
But I think the way they are approaching it is right now he is the starting center fielder, or at least he's tied with Carlson because they're splitting reps with Dylan Carlson. But when Carlson's in a lineup like he was yesterday with all of the regulars and he ends up sticking around till the 8th inning while everybody else has clearly left was very telling. I was shocked when I saw Carlson getting a 4th at-bat in that game. So I think right now it's Victor Scott, and I don't even think it's a battle between Carlson and Burleson. I think right now it is, hey, if Nootbaar's out, Burleson's our starting left fielder. It might be more of a battle between Burleson and Donovan, and that's just more of, is Donovan's arm going to be able to play the outfield for right now?
But if you're going to put Victor Scott in center field, wouldn't you rather have the better defense in left field?
I
think Victor Scott allows you to have worse defense in left.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing about
he's covering for Walker, too, though.
Yeah, but Walker has range. It's different because having that guy with that kind of range in center field, it can make up for some of what you have in left, man. Like you can get by, and I think sometimes we overstate how bad defensively what it was last year with Alec Burleson. Burleson just doesn't get to the ball because he's slow. When he gets there, he typically makes the routine catch. He's not a guy that's out there like bobbling all over with the ball. Like he looks like an outfielder when you have your eyes closed. It was just a weird way to say it, but like he's just slow and kind of clunky out there. But like Walker looks unnatural as an outfielder. He did last year. When he figures out all of the, hey, this is how you play the outfield stuff, his skills should translate to it. Burleson just doesn't have those skills. He doesn't have the talent to be it, but for whatever his body is capable of, he's kind of there as an outfielder, if that makes sense. Like he's at a 10 out of 10 on maxing out his capacity as an outfielder. He's just never going to be very good out there defensively. So I guess it comes down to like, are you okay with that? We've seen here in St. Louis, man, they've played with a lot of bad outfielders defensively. But can you make up for it with the other players? Last year you had, I know everybody's going to yell at me, I think Dylan Carlson is average to below average in center. I think he's above average in left or right, but I think he's average to below average in center. So you had that in center field, and then in left and in right, you had below average defenders in both of those spots. So you had nowhere that you could make up for it. And oh, by the way, in your infield, you had two guys that were probably below average at their respective positions as well. Okay? That's not ideal. This year, you could go into the season with Victor Scott in center as a plus defender in center field. That changes things for you. And you can make up for some of what you're lacking in the corners because of Victor Scott. At least that's how I view it. That's why I would be more okay with Burleson in left if you go that route. I personally, though, would still I would start Dylan Carlson in left field, see what it looks like.
I'm kind of with you guys, but I think what they would tell you is against a right-handed pitcher, Carlson doesn't give him a good enough at-bat. And I understand, and I totally agree with Alex saying, like, hey, 1 through 6, you should be fine to make up for that.
Maybe platoon it. Maybe that's the way you do it.
And I think that could be the route they go. I really don't think they want Donovan in the outfield. I think that's when he got hurt, was when he was in the outfield. So if you're the Cardinals, I think this year you're very cautious with putting him in the outfield, at least for the first portion of the season. I think it's probably best case scenario for Carlson is it's probably platoon and left if Scott ends up going and being the center fielder. Or honestly, because Scott's a left-hander, right? He's not a switch, if I remember correctly. Maybe early on he ends up starting in center field over Victor Scott because they want to be cautious with Scott and not have a split with him. I don't know what their approach would be against a lefty for Victor Scott early on in the year because they've been cautious with younger prospects like think Nolan Gorman, think Brendan Donovan, honestly Nootbaar there for a while. They were platooning as well. But I think best case scenario for Carlson, it's a platoon with somebody. I just think right now they don't trust Carlson.
Burleson just homered.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
I think off of Brian Bello.
He's having an incredible spring.
That's why I believe he's going to be in the lineup no matter what, whether it's DH or in the outfield. He's going to be in there no matter what. It's just a matter of who are you putting in center field, and are you okay with the defense behind it? And this comes back to
the thing is though, like just to add on to that, Alex, you can't have him at DH probably because if you're going this scenario with Donovan is either at second or DH, and if he's not at DH, then Gorman's at DH.
Then this is more of the reason why Victor Scott needs to be on this roster. And if he's not on this roster, then they're telling you because, again, the only way he's not on this roster is because they want to be patient with him. If he's not on this roster, then they're hoping the offense carries them through a couple of weeks that your defense is going to be bad in the outfield. And I don't trust that.
And I think the part that's also interesting, because I think one reason that we've talked about this, like remember, going into the year, their whole thought process was 1 through 7, we're going to be really good offensively. 8 and 9, like whatever win and whatever Edmund provide offensively is a bonus. I think where it gets interesting is now if like Nootbaar's out, and again, it's only going to be like probably a week or two if he is out, is, okay, well now it's 1 through 6. Do you still want that 7th spot to be an offensive-minded one? And if that's the case, maybe even look at Scott and say, man, he probably gives us a better shot to be more offensive-minded than what Dylan Carlson does in center field.
That's the other thing is, are we overestimating the ceiling offensively with Carlson? Because Carlson, nobody agrees with me, that's fine. I think is average, let's call it average in center field, and is a below-average hitter right now, and he needs to prove otherwise. Well, with Victor Scott, I've got a plus-plus defender, based on all accounts, a plus-plus runner on the bases based on all accounts, and hell, we've seen it with our own eyes at this point, and a guy that is probably a slightly below-average hitter. Okay, well, one of those guys is just better than the other. He's more talented than the other guy. And until Dylan Carlson proves otherwise, I can't just lean on what he did 3 years ago. At some point, I need to see you do it on the field. He's got every opportunity. Dude, Dylan Carlson could have put this thing away. He could have made all of us say, you know what, Dylan's having a good spring. He should be your starting center fielder. Let's just don't worry about what Victor Scott does. This is all really good news for the future. But for right now, Dylan Carlson has earned the opportunity in center field. He has not done that. He has not shut the door on Victor Scott's hype. And so because of that, he opened it up, and Victor Scott's running through the opening right now. And I'm not just going to deny the kid his opportunity based on something that happened a while ago. And Siani, who might have to be DFA'd from the roster, or Jared Young, who might have to be DFA'd from the roster, or Rivas, who might have to be DFA'd from the roster. Those are not things that I'm going to avoid because of this. So, yeah, I think Victor Scott should be your opening day center fielder, and this is around the same time last year where we came to the same conclusion with Jordan Walker. It became clear about midway through camp, all right, that's the guy. He should be starting in right field for you. Coming up next, the Juncture here on 101 ESPN.
It's time to dive into the junk drawer here on BK and Ferrario as BK hacks up a lung. I'm Alex Ferrario. Guys,
Did you see his Patrick Queen signed?
shut up.
It's a 3-year deal he's signing with
Shut up, you idiot.
the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Shut
I
up,
thought
you
he signed
dummy.
with the Seahawks yesterday.
Okay.
I don't remember that. And
The
first
Adam's
off,
apple is a big target, and I'm about to hit it
Yes.
with a pencil.
Yes.
I do like this deal.
Shut up. I got a
move.
junk drawer story today.
Sir.
We all know how much I despise the grocery store.
Oh, boy.
Well, I have found a
Another
place that
grocery store.
I have found a place that I despise more than the grocery store. And I would imagine it's a place that everybody despises. Would you like to take any guesses?
Laundromat.
No. Where the
Laundromat.
hell would I go? I'm not Tanner.
I mean, I hate the laundromat.
The DMV.
Oh, yeah. The DMV stinks.
And it's not for what you'd think I'd hate the DMV for.
You should come out to St. Charles because our DMV is nothing but fantastic.
Well-
Every time I've ever been there, smooth, it operates.
You hear that, T-Bone?
efficiently. Yeah, if you guys want to do an endorsement deal, I'm happy to
say what I heard was I thought maybe
St. Charles DMV. Let's get that endorsement deal.
DMV is
Kick 'em in.
looking for
I'm just trying to
endorsement deals.
picture that live read.
It
Hey,
would
it's
be
Brandon
awful.
Kiley. I'm here for the St. Charles DMV.
No.
Are you looking to renew your license this year?
That's right.
It's-
I know the place where you can do it.
It's not even.
Exclusively if you live in the St. Charles city limits.
It's not even the way that you'd think I'd hate because, I don't like the grocery store because of people.
Sure.
The DMV has to be a disaster for people that sit there. I was there for 45 minutes yesterday. I was getting my license plates renewed. And I'm watching person after person get called up to renew their license plates. They sit down. They hand over their paperwork, already a disgruntled mess.
Get
And
told
the
they don't
and the
have
person
something.
working looking at him goes, hey, you don't have the proper paperwork.
I hate that moment. I had that
There
moment.
is nothing more uncomfortable than watching a argument from typically it's elderly women of what do you mean I don't have the right paperwork? Well, ma'am, this is the paperwork that's required on your postcard that we sent you.
I just bring literally everything. I'm like,
That's-
here's my entire life with 17 different proofs of addresses. What do you need?
It's this it happened 4 times yesterday in 45 minutes. The back and forth of, well, what do you mean? Well, it's on your postcard. Well, I didn't get that postcard. Well, you should have got the postcard. Well, I didn't get the postcard. Well, here's my proof of address. Well, that's not the same proof of address. The ultimate anxiety that I had sitting there because every person went up and got sent out, and I'm looking at my postcard of like, okay, do I have my insurance card? I have my license. It's like, I hope they don't send me home. It was so uncomfortable.
So you didn't have to do like the walk of shame after
I
having
have
that
before.
conversation.
I've
I've
never
done
done
that.
that. Yep.
When I transferred my plates from Illinois to Missouri, in Illinois you don't have to have I don't remember what it's called here, where they test for the emissions.
Yeah.
They don't have that in Illinois. So I did that here in Missouri, and this was when I had my Ford Focus. So I take it in to, I think it was a Ford dealership because I had to get work done as well. I say, hey, can you take care of this? I'm going to transfer my license plates over. They hand me back all the paperwork. Never told me that it failed. Failed. The tires were too old. They never told me that it failed the quote unquote inspection. So I go in the DMV. Here I come. All these people are getting yelled at. Not this guy. This guy's got all the papers. And then I get your car failed inspection. I went, what?
There was a legit 15-minute argument from this woman. She had to be like in her late 60s. She needed 2 proofs of address to get her license renewed, and she handed it over. And the lady that was working there goes, "Sorry, ma'am, this address says St. Louis, and this address says Creve Coeur." And the lady started going, "What do you mean? It's the same address. It's the same." She
St.
said,
Louis unincorporated.
She said,
That's all
"I
I'm saying."
understand, but it has to say St. Louis." And it's like the DMV lady. First of all, the tone. BK should know this. The tone was a big part of
You
it.
could work at the DMV.
I probably should.
That'd be excellent.
The tone was a part of it, but the lady kept arguing, and I was in my head. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, oh my God, lady, she's just going to keep giving you the same answer. It's not going to work. Leave. And then the whole, well, what time is better for me to come back? And then the DMV lady goes, well, no time. We're always busy. Okay, so when should I get here? Well, whenever you get here, you're going to be waiting. I'm like, ah!
Yeah, that's the worst part is you go, okay, this is going to be a quick and simple process. You open that door and you go, oh, God, there's nowhere to even sit.
Someone sorry,
You can do
BK.
most of this online now.
But
that's the nice thing.
But it has to be like, so I do it online, but
I'm
every
even talking check-in.
every certain, you can do the check-in, but every certain amount of years you have to do the emissions test, which means you have to go in. And so, like, that's why I always renew 1 year and then 2 years so that I can push it off as much as possible.
I got to tell you, I don't think the DMV is all that bad. I think it gets a bad rap.
Well,
I think people don't want to be there. I think it's fine.
Because you have tone problems, and the lady's rude.
Those are my people.
Yeah, the lady's rude to BK, and he's just having a conversation.
He doesn't even recognize she has tone.
Yeah, he's like, you're a sweetheart.
You're
One
real
of us.
friendly.
Look at us. Look at us. Who would have thought?
She looks at him and she goes, "Sir, you don't have the right paperwork." "Ma'am, I know that, but I don't want to leave yet."
I'm actually kind of starting to veer onto Alex's side, by the way, with grocery stores. I have like a grown man yells at clouds moment recently.
Oh, well, you should have the junk drawer today.
10 aisles or 10 cash registers that are technically supposed to be opened. There is a line right now that is going into the pharmacy. Can we open more than 2 of them?
No.
No, we can't. Okay, can we change the limits on how many items I can have by going over to the self-checkout? Because there are currently 2 openings, but you tell me I can only have 10 items to go over there.
You know what you do? You take your kid with you. You pinch your kid when you get close to it when the kid's screaming, and they'll let you up faster.
Does that work?
I don't pinch my kid.
What if I just cry because I don't have a kid?
I don't. Well, you could cry. That might
Luke
work.
was sleeping, so it was fine. It is what it is. But it's just like,
Dude,
come on, man.
the other problem?
We've got to do better. Also, they don't have anybody that's bagging anymore. We don't have those people that are employed.
Bag yourself.
So it's like, okay, we have 2 people that are checking everybody out. Nobody is going to have any of the bags ready to go.
This is my people right now. Can I complain to you?
So now it's just taking even longer for all of us to get moving through these turns.
You old guys.
You know what I hate? People that walk up and down the aisle and don't understand that the right lane goes this way and the left lane goes this way. And then the people that stand in front of the wall and look at the groceries. Nobody, get out of my damn way. I need rice-a-roni.
He's describing me walking through a grocery store right
I
now.
would run my cart into the back of you so many times.
I don't have any of those issues. Mine is exclusively with hey, it's a busy time. Can we have more than 2 people working at the cash
Well, you know,
registers?
you'd probably get there faster and not wait in line if you wouldn't stand in front of the damn rice-a-roni and stare at it for 15 minutes.
The Blues are currently playing out the string this season. How many players on the team are playing for their future here in St. Louis? Talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friend Tracy Bibb. Her and her team at Allstate have been taking care of the Ferrario family for the last 3-4 years now, covering our home and car insurance. And what I love about Tracy, you hear me talk about it all the time, the customer service, because she's always available for you. And I've called her a lot in the past, whether it's been a tree branch falling on top of my shed, of course, the fender benders that happen on the side of the road. And when you're calling your insurance agent, you've been there before. You dial it, you wait 15 minutes, nobody answers. You're stuck on the side of the road with no answers of what to do. Tracy is so different there. She's always available. Her team's always available, and they're always there to help you out. And very upfront about the prices, making sure that you understand what falls under the umbrella, always making sure that they get you competitive rates so you save money. Give Tracy a call today. Tell her Alex Ferrario sent you, and they will go through a non-committal quote free. She'll walk you through the whole process, even cancel your insurance agent for you. 314-328-4267. 4260. That's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the bib.
So the St. Louis Blues are technically still in the playoff race, but realistically speaking, it feels unlikely for the Blues this year. And instead, they're going to be somewhere picking between like the 10th and the 15th overall selection. And that's just the way that this season's going to go. You had some good, Benner, Neighbors, Thomas, Parayko. You had some bad, mostly everything else. But Alex, the rest of the way, we got about 20 games remaining this season. Who are the players that you're identifying that you'll have circled on your lineup sheet that are playing for their future one way or another with the Blues?
Boy, it's going to be like Santa Claus's naughty or nice list. This is going to be long. I think for sure, I don't think Pavel Buchnevich falls into this category because I think the Blues already know what he is, and it's going to be a matter of do you want to meet our price? I think Jordan Kyrie's in this category. I think he has to have a good final stretch for the Blues to sit there and say, are you a part of the fix moving forward? I had a great conversation with Jamal Mayers yesterday just talking about how younger players have to step up into leadership roles faster. If not, you're part of the problem. I would say Brandon Saad and Kevin Hayes are in that conversation. And then on defense, I think you're looking at Torrey Krug and Justin Falk. Those would be the guys that I would put into that conversation of, are you a part of the fix? I know I didn't say Nick Leddy's name. I'm sure they'll get calls on Nick Leddy for how he's played. I feel like Nick Leddy is great as a second pair defenseman. I think Scott Perunovich has at least shown you signs of, look, for minimum next year, we'll run it back one more season to see what you can do. I think you're talking Krug and Falk, Saad and Hayes, and Jordan Kyrou.
I would add Scott Perunovich to that list. I think that's pretty much it.
It makes sense. And I mean, look, Scott Perunovich is just going to be a matter of, does somebody give you something worth moving them on?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to come down to. Because
but also, like, I don't know what his future is here, man. If we're just being honest, like, is he somebody that is a part of your top six next year?
I think if you can,
defensively?
I think if you can move on from a Torrey Krug, and I only say Torrey Krug's name, I like the way Torrey Krug has played.
One replacement.
But yeah, I mean, Perunovich, if he's on this team, he has to be on the number one power play unit, and he's got to play in the offensive zone. And right now, you're using him as a third pair defenseman on a line with another offensive-minded defenseman. So you're basically telling Scott Perunovich, hey, when you're playing, we need you to be a shutdown defenseman. And that's not his role. You didn't draft him as that. So you got to move. You have to move on from one of these guys on your power play, whether it's Torrey Krug or Justin Falk. Justin Falk's name is in this conversation because Matt Kessel, to me, has outplayed him in a matter of 23 games.
So let's look at this realistically speaking then. Let's start with the forwards, and then we'll work our way down to the defensemen. Kyrou, Saad, Hayes. Those were the three forwards that you mentioned that are playing their way potentially either into or out of the Blues' plans heading into next season. Kyrou's a long-term deal. Let's set that one aside for a second. Saad and Hayes both have 2 years left after this season. Saad is at $4.5 million. Hayes is at $3.5 million. What can they, should they, will they do that will determine whether or not you see them as a part of the Blues' future based on what they do in the next 20?
I think you got to see more from Kevin Hayes in terms of puck possession and the ability to create offense, because their line has had way too much one-and-dones. If the Blues had it their way, I think they would say, you know what, Brandon Saad is good for us, because at best case scenario, he's a third-line winger who, as we're seeing, can still score goals and goes to the front of the net. But you've got to have more consistency from Kevin Hayes, because if he's not playing the third line for you and creating offense, and Zach Dean should be playing in that role, then Kevin Hayes is on your fourth line. And Kevin Hayes is on your fourth line as a winger because Oscar Sundqvist is already on that fourth line. So I think you have to see more ability to create offense with Kevin Hayes. He's already great in the faceoff dot. You know what he is defensively, so it's not going to improve. You brought him here to at least create depth of scoring, and you went, 20 games prior to the Philadelphia Flyers game that he scored a goal.
So Kevin Hayes in his last 34 games prior to last night had 2 goals and 7 points.
And one of those goals,
games.
And one of those goals was against Philly, which was like 2 games prior to last night.
Yep.
And he fell and didn't really,
Hey, he scored a goal, damn it.
Sorry. To give Kapanen credit for going off
But
the
like,
ref and all that, but yeah.
It sounds like I don't like Kevin Hayes, and I know a lot of
There
people
was a
don't.
27-game stretch in which he had 1 goal, 2 assists, and was a -9 on the ice.
I think Kevin Hayes is exactly what you're paying for a third-line centerman at $3.5 million.
Oh, I think you're getting less than that. I think he's a fourth-line center with the kind of production that you've gotten out of him. I think Sundqvist has been a better player for the Blues this season than Kevin Hayes.
Last year, I mean, if you were getting last year's version of Kevin Hayes, I'd be fine with this, but you're not right now. You are getting a fourth-line centerman in Kevin Hayes, and that's where you have to see an improvement. And if you don't, then you look at it and say, well, let's see what we can do, because now there's a roster spot that is being filled up where a younger player could come in and try and have success with.
Is it odd if I say I don't think there's anything Hayes or Saad can do to where I say they're a part of the future? Like, I don't feel that way.
That's how I feel especially about Hayes. Like, I would try to move on from him this offseason.
I would
retain salary. I would do 50%. And see what you can get for him. A $1.7 million Kevin Hayes for another team that is using him as a fourth-line center. I mean, you just paid 1.5 for Oscar Sundqvist over the next 2 seasons.
You're still paying like 1.5 for Verona to be in your minors.
Exactly. I think that is a more than reasonable asset for another team. You'll probably get 4th, 5th, 6th round pick in return for him, and you open up that spot in the lineup. Like, his spot should be taken next year by Zach Dean.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to find out right now. I think really it's not about what Kevin Hayes does to me, and this is why I would have Dean in my top 9. I want to find out, can I have him in the lineup on opening night of next year in the place of where I currently had Kevin Hayes in my lineup? And if so, cool. I'm trading Kevin Hayes this offseason. Saad's a little different. Saad, I think, is more tied to Snuggerud. It's more tied to Bolduc. It's more tied to some of the guys that could potentially be coming this offseason. I don't know that there's anything one way or the other that is going to change on whether or not he's going to be here.
Like, if I look at my line combinations for next season, just projecting forward, I think Alexei Toropchenko has done everything he should to deserve an opportunity into the top 9. He should be on a wing in the top 9. And if you like Brandon Saad and he's there for you, then you've got him in your top 9. You know Snuggerud's going to be there. You know Bolduc's going to be there. You know Neighbors is going to be there. Thomas and Shen. So we're talking about 2 spots depending on what you do with Jordan Kyrou. And in that sense, like, you have to figure out who fits into this criteria for you, because you're not creating offense at 5-on-5. You were supposed to have more players come in to create 5-on-5. And I think some of this is circumstantial with Kevin Hayes and the line mates he's had. He's been relying on Kapanen and Verona to be those and Sammy Blais to be the goal scorers for them, and it hasn't worked. But I also look at the centerman and say, are you creating offense as well? And I don't believe he has been.
So let's get to the defense, because we've had the Kyrou conversation so many different times. We don't need to have it again.
Yeah.
We all know where we stand on that. I don't think there's really a whole lot he can do the rest of the way to change our opinion one way or the other. We've had that conversation a number of times. Falk's interesting to me, man. Did you see the way that the time on the ice ended up working out last night?
Yeah, they actually used Falk and Perunovic as the second pair, and Kessel and Krug were the third pair at even strength.
That was weird to me. Surprising to me. Didn't see that one coming. What does that mean? I don't know if that was a matter of, hey, they were up early.
They were on power play a lot.
But even strength, 19
he played
versus 13.
Yeah, he played like 4 more minutes,
6.
Yeah.
So what do we make of that? And what do the next 20 games mean for Falk and Krug in your mind?
I mean, what I make of that is Falk and Krug can't play together, because I didn't see Falk as a problem last night. And for the longest time, it's been Falk and Krug. It's looked at and it's like, man, they're a defensive liability out there. Krug and Kessel looked good. Falk and Perunovic looked good. Both pairs broke up plays. So what I learned is you can't have Falk and Krug play together. Now it comes down to what's the interest level and can I move one of the no-trade clauses? And as Doug Armstrong has said, who wants to be a part of the solution? Because I think Nick Leddy should be your second pair defenseman on the left side. I think you should go out and find somebody to play with Colton Parayko on the left side. And then it comes down to how do you want to formulate the rest of your roster? You know you've got Justin Falk, or I'm sorry, you know you've got Matt Kessel, you know you've got Colton Parayko. And then from there, it's what else do we do with this? What I made from that last night was, look, they know that Justin Falk can play at 5-on-5. They put him out there. They deploy him. They trust him. But it's not with Torrey Krug. So do you like the Krug and Kessel moving forward? Do you like the Falk and Perunovic moving forward? And can that be a top 6 for you next season? I think you have to upgrade with the position that is with Colton Parayko. And to do that, you're going to have to move off of one of those contracts.
Yeah, I don't know if you feel this way. I feel that the way Justin Falk has played this year, and I don't even think an opinion can change in the final, whatever it is, 15, 20 games. I don't think he's a tradable asset in the offseason. I think if you're going to trade one of those two defensemen, it's probably Torrey Krug, because I think Torrey Krug's looked pretty good. And if you're the St. Louis Blues, though I like what I've seen from Torrey Krug, I don't know if Krug and Kessel's a top 4 pairing defense. I don't think they're a second pair defensive crew that a winning team's going to have. I think you almost just have to trade Torrey Krug to get out of the contract and free up that cap space. And that's why I think nothing's going to change in the final 15, 20 games. I'll be curious to see if the ice time looks like it did last night. But I think if you're the St. Louis Blues, I don't know if Falk can all of a sudden become a tradable asset. He has not had a good year. There's no denying that. I think it's Torrey Krug's the guy that's probably the one. If they're going to look to get out of a contract, Krug's the guy that I would circle as saying he's played well for all season. We'll see if he wants to go play for a competitor, if they can get a deal done.
Yeah, there's going to be something that has to be decided on what do you want to do with retaining salary? Because over the next couple of seasons, the Blues aren't going to be in a spot, we don't think, where they're going to be like, go, 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 go. And if you have to retain a couple $1,000,000 on some of these different trades, it does limit you in terms of what you can do in season. That's something to keep in mind for, like, hey, if the Blues do get good quicker than expected, you're not going to have that salary spot, and now you're going to have to trade assets to somebody else to be able to retain salary. You only get 3 of those per season. And if you're trading, for example, Kevin Hayes and one of these defensemen that we're talking about and retaining on both, well, for the next 2 years, those are going to be tied up with those 2 players. But I think you should probably be looking to trade Justin Falk this offseason. He'd be the guy that I'm looking at. He's just redundant. Matt Kessel has made Justin Falk expendable, and that's not me saying that Matt Kessel is like the greatest thing since sliced bread, but he's fine. He's fine. And he's playing for you right now at $885,000, whereas you're having to pay $6.5 million for Justin Falk. Let's reallocate those funds. Let me get a 3rd or 4th round pick for Justin Falk. I'll spend $3 million for each of the next 3 seasons on him, and I'll save $3.5 million.
Problem is you got to figure out which one's more likely to move their no trade clause.
And it's probably Falk, but I don't know.
See, I don't know. I would say it would be more likely with Torrey Krug. I mean,
yeah, that's one of those personal things that we
don't know, right?
On the outside, you know.
I mean, Torrey Krug said no because he didn't want to go to Philadelphia last year. So really, I mean, as much as we can sit there and point to they got to move on from one of these, you have to decide which one is more likely to waive their no trade clause and the team that would be willing to take on. We heard at the deadline that the right shot defenseman was the most in demand, but is it a team that is a team that Justin Falk would say, yeah, I want to go there? And that's the question that Doug Armstrong has to ask.
Quick update for you. Victor Scott is now 3 for 3 in his game against the Boston Red Sox. This one came via a single. Matthew Liberatore has allowed 3 earned runs in 3 innings. He's given up 4 hits, including a home run to Trevor Story and a double to Trevor Story. Colton Long, by the way, had a double in this one as well. He does have 4 strikeouts, and it was said earlier today he hit 97 with his fastball. So fastball velo is up a tick for Matthew Liberatore in the game today against the Red Sox. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll continue our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for 2024 with a pitcher for the Cardinals. We'll get into that coming up here in just a little bit. But next, I feel like we're all missing something with Justin Fields, and we're going to try to explore that next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you. Excited to talk about Ted Drew's frozen custard off of Chippewa, now open for its 95th season. 95 years, 4 generations. Families have been serving St. Louisans the famous frozen custard. And when you talk about quality, it is legendary at Ted Drew's. That high-quality frozen custard made with only the finest ingredients, each batch crafted with care, attention to ensure the perfect creamy texture and rich flavor. And if that doesn't get you hungry, well, then listen to some of these mixtures that they have, the specialty flavors, whether it's the City Red in honor of the City SC, Ted's delicious vanilla custard with maraschino cherries, coconut flakes, Dad's Scotch oatmeal cookie. You can get it as a concrete or a sundae. So get on out there when it's beautiful out like it's going to be tonight. Sit in the back of your car and enjoy that family time with the frozen custard. And while you're there, walk across the parking lot. Check out the gift shop where you can go through all of their apparel. You can get kids, adults, hats, drinkware, gift cards, everything over at Ted Drew's gift shop. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
So the NFL's quarterback carousel is off and running, and it feels like there's one quarterback that's just left standing without a team.
Drew Lock.
He's going to be going to the New York Giants.
Good for Drew Lock. Kind of. He'll get killed there.
Why?
They signed him for $5 million.
Man, they are really back in that Daniel Jones train, aren't they?
It seems like everybody has an answer now, whether it's going to be a rookie or the teams that are kind of questionable on their starters. And so they go out and, the Las Vegas Raiders, they signed Gardner Minshew yesterday. Okay, cool. We've got a placeholder here just in case we strike out on the quarterback market. And then there's Justin Fields, who's just kind of there, waiting, assuming that somebody's going to trade for him, and nobody has. And Alex, every report that we're getting, whether it's from Adam Schefter or NFL Network, whoever, they all seem to be indicating, there is zero market right now for Justin Fields as a starter. If he wants to take a job as a backup, there's some teams that'll call. Maybe you look at a team like Baltimore, Philadelphia, teams that have run-first quarterbacks that are also good throwers. Listen, Lamar's amazing, and I like Jalen Hurts a lot, but he fits in with the style of the offense that they play. Are we just going to get through this whole cycle and Justin Fields is not going to be a starting quarterback? Is that where this is heading?
Seems like it, and I don't get it. I mean, if I'm Vegas right now, I would be calling and figuring out if I can just trade a 4th-round pick for him or something like that. I mean,
don't think it's going to cost much more than that.
I don't either. I mean, right now, it just seems like Chicago wants to get something so that they can trade Justin Fields and go the Caleb Williams route. It makes zero sense that nobody's calling about this because it's not like Justin Fields was Bryce Young bad last year. Justin Fields was good last year when you actually gave him a competent weapon to throw to. He was a quarterback that, what did he win, like 6 of his last 8 games last season to possibly put Chicago in a playoff conversation? I just don't understand what teams are looking at in terms of, he's a backup quarterback. There's no freaking way Justin Fields is a backup quarterback and Sam Darnold is a starting quarterback. In what universe is that possible when you're talking about a guy who hasn't been able to make it on as a starting quarterback in the last 3 years when Justin Fields was making that offense respectable last season. I don't understand it.
Yeah, that's where I am, because it would be one thing if he played like Bryce Young or really Mac Jones the last 2 years, where I look at it and go, yeah, it's clear he's not a starting caliber quarterback. And I'm not saying Fields just looked like that his whole tenure in Chicago. It's been up and down, but I've seen spurts. It feels like every year in the second half, he plays great. In the first half, it's usually questionable. The last 2 years, it's been kind of iffy in the first half for Justin Fields. But in the second half of the season, he plays really well. If I'm a team, I'd be looking at going, well, we can kind of figure that out in the first half. We can make sure that he's ready to go. We can work on the up and downs, and we can handle that. Because I look across the league, and I go, Russell Wilson, who the last two teams basically said, we don't want you, got rid of him. I look at Baker Mayfield, who's going to be a starting quarterback, who's on his, third or fourth try as a starting quarterback. Nobody wants to suddenly give Justin Fields a second chance, which is, like BK said, and you said it's probably going to be a fourth-round pick that you get him for. It just seems odd. It doesn't seem to check out because, again, you have seen spurts of Justin Fields look like a legitimate starting quarterback. I don't think he'd ever be a top 10 quarterback. I don't think that's his ceiling. But can he be in that 10 to 15 range? I think he can be in the NFL. And if you have that quarterback, ask Minnesota. They got to the playoffs with Kirk Cousins, and Atlanta just paid $100 million guaranteed for Kirk Cousins to be the 10th to 15th best quarterback.
I'm shocked by this. I probably shouldn't be, but I'm shocked by the lack of market that seemingly exists for Justin Fields. And it makes me go back to last offseason. Same thing was true for Lamar Jackson, man. Lamar was essentially made available. And everybody was like, and there were PR releases that came out from the Falcons who just spent $100 million guaranteed on a 36-year-old quarterback coming off of a torn ACL. And they were like, nah, we're actually not interested in Lamar.
That one, though, was from the outside was tough. That was owner collusion. Let's just be honest.
Correct.
Let's call a spade a spade. They didn't want to give him a fully guaranteed contract.
Something where you would have to completely change everything that you do with your offense. Because Lamar is one of one. He is unlike anything else that we have seen before or after. He is the only guy that we've seen be that successful playing that way. And Justin Fields is trying to become the second. That is essentially like what Justin Fields is modeling his game after is, could he be something similar to what Lamar has been for the Ravens? And it seems like, and by the way, Lamar didn't go until the final pick of the first round of the draft. We saw something similar with Fields where he fell, not as far as Lamar did, but I do wonder if there's something about the playing style or if there's something about him being a first-read quarterback. Like, you can win this way. It works. Jalen Hurts is not all that dissimilar. Lamar Jackson, not all that dissimilar. But teams don't want to try it because it's very different than what you can get out of Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff or Baker Mayfield. Like, these guys play within the structure of your offense, and coaches like quarterbacks that can play within the structure of their offense. The same thing is true. Why did Darnold get another look? Because he'll play in my structure, right? Coaches want control. And with Fields, you don't have that same amount of control over your offense. He's going to be a lot of freestyling. He's going to be a guy that holds onto the ball longer than you want him to. He's not going from point A to point B to point C and then getting the ball where it needs to go when it needs to be there. It's just a different way to play it. And so you have Atlanta going with Kirk Cousins. You have Pittsburgh, this is the one that I don't understand. Going with Russell Wilson over Jalen Hurts, I keep doing Jalen Hurts, over Justin Fields makes no sense to me if you're Pittsburgh. It doesn't make any sense. Whatever. Washington going with Mariota, New England going Brissett, totally fair. Minshew over him, I guess that means that they're just going young. Okay, I can at least listen to the argument there. Cleveland going Jameis. Why are you signing Jameis Winston instead of trading for Fields? The Giants, why are you signing Drew Lock instead of trading for Justin Fields when you have a quarterback that plays very similarly to Fields? I'm very confused by this, and I'm running out of landing spots. I don't know where he goes now.
Yeah, I have no idea where he ends up. But to your point there, like, I understand those three teams that are in the top three. You know, New England, Washington, and Chicago. I mean, we know Chicago, what they're doing. But of those two other teams who are probably going to be drafting in the top three there, that totally makes sense to bring in a veteran. You know what you're going to do. You're going to draft a quarterback. But when you're a team like Minnesota sitting outside the top 10, Vegas who's sitting, are they outside the top 10? Are they barely in? I don't remember where
they're right on the outside looking in.
But either way, you either A, have to trade up significant assets to move up to get the quarterback, or B, that you hope that one falls to you. And also, let's not forget, look at the 2021 draft class, guys.
Yeah.
That just because you're drafting a quarterback in the first round does not mean it's going to work out. You could be super high on him all you want. doesn't mean it's going to work out. You know what I've seen Justin Fields do at the NFL level as a starting quarterback? I've seen him have some success. He hasn't had a ton. He hasn't looked great
But
by
the team has been bad around him the entire time he was
He's
there.
been okay.
Can also clear up one thing from the 636 guys. Russell Wilson makes sense for the Steelers because he only cost $1 million. That's the big difference between him and Justin Fields. Can I give you Justin Fields' salary for this year for
Is it
the
like
team that
$2
acquires
mil?
him?
It's not much.
$1.6 million.
It's even lower than I thought.
Man, Minnesota should have pounced all over that.
You're paying Drew Lock $5 million. You could have had him for $1.6 million. Like, get out of here with this, man. I'm sorry. These teams are making a mistake. And I understand that a lot of the time we are supposed to say these teams know what they're doing. They know what. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes these teams are just really stupid. And right now, it appears that teams are making a really dumb mistake. I'm fascinated to see where he goes because somebody's going to get a massive discount on a player that, let's be clear here, none of us are saying this is a top 10 quarterback or anything, but like, if you're the Tennessee Titans, call now. Because right now, you have a quarterback that you have no idea if he's any good or not in Will Levis. Let's do a competition. Let's find out if he can beat out Justin Fields going into the opening game of the season. What do you have to lose? You're going through a true rebuild in Tennessee right now. Might as well find out. And if it works, great. We just figured out our quarterback situation and had to give like 0 assets up for it. I think what also might be happening here, I think teams might really love this quarterback class. Like teams might be looking at it and saying, okay, do we want Justin Fields or do we want one of Penix, Bo Nix, Rattler, or J.J. McCarthy?
Rattler.
I'm with you, but like especially those other three, Nix,
let's
McCarthy,
take them over Justin
and
Fields.
Penix, are one of those 3 guys better for us than trading for Justin Fields? I could totally understand if your answer to that is yes. I get it.
Those guys are projects, and I hope you understand that.
Sure, but I get it. That at least makes some sense to me. Maybe this just takes until after the first round. And then after the first round, some of these teams are going to be left without a dance partner. And they say, oh, God, our best option here is definitely to trade for Justin Fields. So I'll be curious to see how long this lasts. If I'm the Bears right now, there is no reason to trade Justin Fields until draft day. And then you can make your move on the day of the draft, probably right before round 2.
Did Denver add a quarterback yesterday? They didn't make a move, right? Yeah,
They were in on Darnold. They were one of the key teams that were in on Darnold.
They're getting McCarthy.
Well, that's the thing. But, I mean, it would make sense, again, like he brought up competition. I could totally see if you're Denver, you draft a quarterback and you trade for Justin Fields.
Yeah,
now you've got a competition.
I don't think that's something that their coach is going to be interested in.
No, well,
But
again, I
what?
wouldn't claim Sean Payton to be a great head coach.
What do you guys think is the best landing spot for him right now?
Vegas. Are you talking
I think
McCarthy
they're
or
done.
Fields?
Fields.
Vegas. I get that they're
Them
done,
signing Minshew, I think, took him out of this
but
market.
that's
I'm with you. I mean, $1 million for Fields or $10 million for Minshew. Who would I rather have? It's a no contest for me.
yeah.
But
I don't know if there is a better landing. I mean, now we're talking backup roles, and
if you're the Chiefs, don't you call? Be like, hey, we'll give you a 4th round pick.
I mean, if I'm the Bears,
You can back
You know
up
who-
Patrick Mahomes for this year, and if anything happens, like we've got a great option.
You know who I was thinking of, like, trade for him, and it's so out there, and I don't even think he fits the system because he wouldn't do it, would be the 49ers.
Sure.
I mean, Brock Purdy's ceiling. Who's got a higher ceiling? Justin Fields or Brock Purdy?
if you're going down that path, I would say the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Put him behind Dak, or
They
honestly,
seem to like Trey
The
Lance.
Rams
though.
should call.
I know. I thought of them too because this is a Rams type move, and they're looking to get somebody to be the guy
Seahawks, the
behind
Colts.
Stafford.
If you're not too sure about Anthony Richardson, I'd call and say, like,
health.
hey, you might be my starting quarterback this
Arizona.
year.
Like,
Yeah.
these are the kinds of teams that now with the price clearly
Seattle.
not being what they expected it to be, give them a call. Hey, can we really get Justin Fields at $1.2 million for a 4th round draft pick? There should be like 20 teams that are interested in that, and I cannot believe that that's not the case. All right, so that's
Way to go,
the
NHL.
Justin Fields situation.
Or NFL. Sorry, I was looking
now.
at NHL.
It's your fault too, NHL. What the hell, Batman?
Well, yeah. hey,
Coming up in
yes.
15
Screw
minutes,
you
we'll
guys.
hit the rewind. But next, we continue our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals with number 13 on our list, an over-the-hill pitcher. That could be anybody. Coming up next on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. I got to tell you about my friends over at Victory Men's Health. It is time to unlock your inner champion today. Man, did you wake up this morning and say to yourself, man, I feel groggy. I don't have the same amount of energy as I once did. When I go to the gym, I'm not getting the same amount of muscle mass on my body as I used to. You feel a little off, whether that's mood, whatever it might be. Well, that might be a sign of low testosterone, and they can help you out over at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. VictoryMen'sHealth.com is the place where you can go to find out more information about all of their different services that they can provide, or you can just go walk in one of their 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. They have one in O'Fallon, Missouri, one in O'Fallon, Illinois, and then 2 others, Town and Country, Missouri, and the new location, which just opened up last month in Sunset Hills, Missouri. Sometimes you walk into these kinds of places, it's dimly lit. It's groggy. It looks like a hospital. Not over at Victory Men's Health. So check them out today. Go to one of their 4 great locations or check them out online at VictoryMen'sHealth.com.
Tara Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Blues beat the Bruins last night 5-1. They'll be back in action tomorrow night as they will be hosting the LA Kings. Well, pregame coverage starting at 5:30 with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. The Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 6:30. News out of the NFL today. Derrick Henry is signing a 2-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens, and the Cardinals currently in spring training action as they are taking on the Boston Red Sox. Cardinals are on top 6-3 in the bottom of the fourth inning. This sports update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
The 20 most important Cardinals for the 2024 season.
Number 13, Lance Lynn.
Here's strike 3 and the 5th punch out for Lance Lynn. There's a cutter, and that is strikeout number 3 for Lance Lynn.
And he gets a Rosarena swinging. So 10 strikeouts for Lance. Lynn took a no-hit bid into the 7th.
On our list of the 20 most important Cardinals for 2024, we have arrived at number 13, and it is indeed Lance Lynn, the man that the Cardinals brought in this offseason to help add to their culture. They want to bring back some of what they used to be in their rotation, which included a lot of winning. And the last time that Lance Lynn was here, man, he was one hell of a pitcher. I think he gets underrated for what he was the first time around. Had like a mid-3 ERA every season of his career, was available in 5 straight years, 30-plus starts. He was awesome. And the Cardinals are hoping that they can regain some of that form heading into 2024, because last year was not the pitcher that they want him to be. Led the league in home runs allowed. He ended up allowing last season on the year 44 home runs. That's worst case scenario. Best case scenario is probably what he was 2 years ago, in which he ended up with the Chicago White Sox having a sub-4 ERA, but didn't give them the innings. Alex, what are you expecting out of Lynn this season?
I'm expecting a lot of hits given up, but I'm also expecting a guy who is going to eat 6 innings. If I'm not mistaken, I had him pretty close to Kyle Gibson on my list in terms of most important pitchers. I think I had Lance Lynn slightly above Kyle Gibson.
Yeah, you had Lance Lynn at number 10 on your list. You had Kyle Gibson at 16.
Okay, so they were a little bit further apart. I think
me and T-Bone did have that, though. T-Bone had Lynn at 13 and Gibson at 15. I had him at 14 and 16, respectively.
So my only thought process with this and why he was higher up than Kyle Gibson is I think he can provide you a little bit more upside than what Kyle Gibson could give you. We know that the feistiness of Lance Lynn is an element to this team that they needed, and we have seen the best of Lance Lynn looking like a guy who's going to give you 6 solid innings, and the fact that you'll be pitching at Busch Stadium is going to benefit you a little bit more. So I am expecting some guy who can look like a pitcher that was worth the money you spent on it, but man, you're relying on a lot of defense covering for you with Lance Lynn, and I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I think best case scenario is you get about 30 starts and he ends up with an ERA or what he did with the Dodgers in 11, where he had a 4.36 ERA. And I had him higher up than Gibson because of what you said. There is a little bit more upside. He does have more swing and miss stuff. And that's a big reason that I'm a little excited about when they made the signing originally was, oh, okay, that's your number 5. And then they signed Gibson. But he does have a little bit of swing and miss. Can he get about anywhere between a 4 and a 4.4 would be, I'd say, the optimistic side for Lance Lynn, and why we've talked so much about this outfield defense. Man, the outfield defense is going to have to be great on a Lance Lynn start because he gave up a ton of home runs and his fly ball percentage was pretty high last year as well.
A brief list of pitchers that had a worse swing and miss strike rate last year than Lance Lynn.
Is this going to have like one name on it?
Corbin Burns, Aaron Nola, Garrett Cole, Framber Valdez, Sonny Gray, Zach Gallen, Kyle Bradish. We can continue from there. Jose Barrios, George Kirby, Justin Verlander.
Is this him trying to sell me like it's a really good pitcher?
Yeah.
He had great swing and miss stuff last year. Genuinely great.
Didn't he have a game with like 16 strikeouts?
The problem was not the swing and miss for him. It was when people did make contact, it was loud. And some of that, the Cardinals believe, was because of pitch tipping. So they're hoping to work on that throughout the spring, and they hope that they have found something with his delivery that will eliminate those issues. And if they do, man, Lance Lynn could be a 3 or 4 starter for you. Totally reasonable. And he's got the swing and miss stuff. that could legitimately play for you out of the bullpen coming into like a playoff series. Like, that's definitely in the realm of the possible for Lance Lynn. I didn't mind Lance Lynn as a signing. I did not like it in tandem with Kyle Gibson, but signing one of those two guys, I never really had an issue with. And if I had to have one over the other, I probably would have sided with Lynn because of all of the things that we've said. The downside is real. The upside is legitimate. And this is one of those guys that could really swing the season for the Cardinals in 2024. So a lot at stake for him and for the Cardinals. At number 13 on our list of the 20 most important Cardinals, it is Lance Lynn. Tomorrow, we'll talk about a guy that by the end of spring training, some might be interested in seeing him sign an extension. I'll tell you who that is tomorrow on our list of the 20 most important
Cardinals. You giving an extension to Tommy Edman already?
Just telling you.
His wrist is hurt, man.
Some people have talked about it. So we'll get into that tomorrow as we continue our countdown at number 12 on the list of the 20 most important Cardinals.
Michael
The
Sinise getting
Rewind
an
coming up
extension?
next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, tackle your 3-1-4-day plans with the Battlehawks this Thursday, March 14th out at Ballpark Village. You can celebrate all things STL with the Battlehawks Town Hall event. The event is free to attend. It features all kinds of different giveaways. The Fast Lane's going to be broadcasting there from 2 to 6. That's all courtesy of Sumner One. Get all the details right now at 101ESPN.com for 3-1-4-day coming up in just a couple of days. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. This is the Rewind here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, let's finish things up the way that we started it today. Listen, a really good win by the Blues last night. No doubt about it. They looked good. They get scoring from their middle six, something we've talked a lot about them not getting for most of the season. And Boston didn't show up. And when you combine those two things, Blues come away with a really nice, impressive win. And yet, I felt totally unsatisfied afterwards, Alex. I can't speak for any of you in the audience, but when I was watching that game, all I could think to myself was, oh, how's this going to affect their draft pick? And that's the part of the season that we're in right now, where you're kind of focusing when you're in the Blues situation on, is it better for them to win? Is it better for them to lose? What am I rooting for here? How did you view that game last night?
Yeah, well, and just to that point, I think a lot of people are feeling that way because you're not the only one. I saw like 15 text messages that said the same thing last night of, oh, well, you just screwed up your draft pick. People feel that way because it feels the only way to get out of this retool faster is to get a really good draft pick. And I think a lot of people are excited for this year's draft because there's top defensemen available, and that's the area that seems to be weakest for the Blues. I do find myself at times looking at it and saying, oh, man, you're screwing your opportunity up to get a really good draft pick because you need it. But for me, and it is kind of 50-50 because I do feel like a good draft pick is necessary for this Blues team. But on the flip side of it, the Western Conference sucks, and they're keeping you in this. And you know that you have a goaltender that makes you competitive. Do I think this team can even win a round? Probably not. But I do know that it benefits your younger players to have at least a little playoff experience. I mean, we're talking about a small group of guys on this roster that have playoff experience with the Blues. So a Neighbors, a Kessel, more of those guys getting a taste of the playoffs is beneficial. The other reason that it's just so in between is because last year, the writing was on the wall, guys. At this time last year, they were 15 points out of a playoff spot. You knew that the team was not making the playoffs, but yet you kept winning, and you're like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. Now, at least the playoffs are right there in front of you, and until it goes further away, I'd much rather see them get an opportunity to make a run and get some experience if you're not going to get a top 5 pick, which you're not going to get.
It just feels like kind of a mirage because we talked a lot about the Blues schedule.
Especially because their 5-on-5 numbers are just so bad.
Here's LA's schedule because they're looking at it the same way. St. Louis, Chicago, Dallas, Chicago, Minnesota. That's their next 5 games. It could be over. But by March 20th, when they finish that game against Minnesota, depending on what happens, especially in that game head-to-head tomorrow night between the Blues and the Kings, that could be what determines what these next 5 games
And at this time of the year, teams typically play their division a lot. And, I mean, think of the LA Kings and the Vegas Golden Knights. The Pacific Division, other than 2 other teams, are awful. I mean, you got a ton of teams that are tanking. So they're going to be playing those teams a lot, where the Blues and the Central Division are playing teams like Colorado and the teams that are a lot more competitive at this time of the year.
So that's our update from last night's game. Blues versus Kings tomorrow. Alex will have your pregame coverage for you right here on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN tomorrow starting at 5:30. Certainly going to be plenty of breakdown on the Blues coming up with the Fast Lane. They do have Jamie Rivers back in studio with them. Been out for a long road trip, so it's good to have Jamie back in studio with them. Selection Sunday, by the way, almost here. Get signed up right now to play in this year's Bracket Madness Pick'em Challenge at 101ESPN.com. Free to enter. The top scorer this year is going home with a $250 Amazon gift card and a 101 ESPN prize pack. All of the contest rules available at 101ESPN.com. This year it is brought to you by Bud Light and Twin Peaks. If you missed anything from our show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.